Good evening. As mayor, I call this electronic communications meeting of Staunton City Council to order. I note that this meeting is being convened with city council members using the Zoom platform, broadcast over the city's cable channel and streamed live on the city's website so that members of the public may hear our meeting. The meeting is also being recorded. I ask the clerk of council at this time to call the roll for confirmation of those council members present for today's meeting. Ms. Simmons?
Mayor Dahl.
Here.
Vice Mayor Kyer.
Here.
Ms. Oakes.
Here.
Mr. Holmes.
Here.
Dr. Harrington.
Here.
Ms. Mead.
Here.
Dr. Curran.
Here.
I've confirmed that all council members are present.
Thank you. I ask that City Manager Steve Rosenberg now identify his location and those city officials or colleagues, if any, present with him at that location, and the participation of anyone else during today's meeting by Zoom or telephone.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I am participating from my residence in Staunton. There is no one with me here at this location. Other city officials who are participating on the Zoom platform include Faith Simmons, Clerk of Council, Leslie Beauregard, Assistant City Manager, Doug Gwynn, City Attorney, Phil Traer, Chief Finance Officer, Billy Vaughn, Community Development and Economic Development Director, and Cheryl Wagner, Tourism Director. We also have, or will have, during the work session and the regular meeting, additional individuals who will be participating. They include representatives of Augusta Health, including Mary Mannix, Mark LaRosa, and John Peterson. Representatives of Centera RMH, including Doug Moyer, Blake Seitz, and Kurt Hufflick. And we also have joining on the Zoom platform as attendees this evening, 3 council members elect whose terms will begin on July 1st. And they are Steve Claffey, Amy Darby, and Mark Robertson. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Please let me mention that notice reasonable under the circumstances of the electronic communications nature of this meeting has been given to the public contemporaneously with the notice provided to members of City Council. This meeting has also been publicized over the course of the past week on the city's website and Facebook page. Access to this meeting has been provided to the public by audio feed on the city's cable channel and the city's website. During this work session, as in the past, there will be no opportunity for public comment. Public comment will be received during council's regular meeting, which will begin at 7:30 p.m. Instructions for public comment can be found on the agenda for the regular meeting and on council's website at www.ci.stanton.va.us/government/city-council. Also, let me highlight and have reflected in the meeting minutes that this meeting is being conducted by Zoom, given the catastrophic nature of the declared emergency and disaster related to the COVID-19 outbreak, which as part of the total circumstances makes it impracticable or unsafe to assemble a quorum in a single location. The meeting is being held consistent with City Council Ordinance 2020-04 regarding continuity of government, a copy of which can be found online at www.stanton.va.us/COGORD2020-04. Given that we are conducting this meeting by Zoom, with the meeting being live streamed on the city's website and broadcast over the cable system as it occurs, I believe it merits reminder of a few special requests as we undertake this meeting in this unique format. First, I emphasize the request that each speaker speak loudly and slowly and self-identify each and every time when speaking, so that it will be clear who is speaking before your remarks are made. Second, please pause after each speaker to allow a brief interval between that speaker and another speaker. Third, if for any reason a participant cannot clearly hear the speaker or must leave the meeting before it is adjourned, please let us know. Fourth, all votes will be taken by roll call and recorded in the minutes. Fifth, I ask that if any member of City Council has to leave the meeting for any period of time, to please interject and make an announcement so that the clerk may take note of attendance in the minutes. I ask that you also announce your return so that it also may be reflected in the meeting minutes. Finally, I ask everyone's patience because without being in the same room, it is likely that a speaker may not realize that another speaker is continuing. Again, we may unintentionally step on each other's words, so it's fine if we need to have the speaker repeat or clarify. We'll take whatever time is necessary so that everyone is clear about what is being said and by whom. I will now take questions from council members and participants if you have any questions about the process. So council members, do you have any questions about that process?
No.
No.
You've heard it a few times before. So we'll move on to the next item, which is the invocation moment of silence. This will be given by Ms. Mead.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. This week, we marked a sober milestone in the coronavirus pandemic as the national death toll reaches 100,000. In Virginia, the death toll climbed to 1,236 people. Steve Rosenberg and his staff have done incredible work to respond to the city's needs at warp speed in this process, and we owe him and our terrific city employees our thanks and appreciation. The war against this virus is ongoing, and the impacts will reach far into the next fiscal year and beyond. There is no doubt that its effects will challenge this council for some time. Now the governor has asked that citizens wear masks to ensure that the spread of the virus continues to slow. As Staunton leaders, I think we need to show members of the community that we want them to be safe and that we support the efforts that our city employees are making to get us through the pandemic and back to what normal will be. We need to encourage our friends and neighbors to wear masks, and we need to wear masks. Now let's take a minute to reflect on the tragedy of the loss of the lives and livelihood that our friends, neighbors, loved ones here and across the country have experienced. Thank you, Mayor Dahl.
Thank you. We'll move on to item 1, which is the consideration of the work session and regular meeting agendas. You've had an opportunity to review the minutes, so I would entertain a motion at this time.
Mayor Dahl,
Dr. Harrington?
I move that we approve the minutes of the last meeting
Thank
and the
you.
work session.
Is there a
The
second?
work session and the last meeting.
All
Mayor
right, is
Dole,
there a second?
I second.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Ms. Simmons, would you call the roll, please?
Dr. Harrington,
Aye.
Ms. Mead,
Aye.
Dr. Curran,
Aye.
Mayor Dahl,
Aye.
Mr. Holmes,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Kyer,
Aye.
Ms. Oakes.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Madam Mayor,
Thank you. Mr. Rosenberg?
may I just note that I believe that Dr. Harrington's motion covered the work session and regular meeting of May 14th, but you also have ready for your consideration the minutes of the work session of May 7th.
Mayor Dahl,
All right, I understand what the confusion is. That item was actually to approve our work session and regular meeting agenda. And the approval of the minutes are in the regular meeting. So we need to probably go back and have someone make a motion to approve the agendas for the work session and the regular meeting tonight.
Mayor Dahl,
Dr. Harrington,
I move that we approve the work session and regular meeting agendas of our last meeting.
of tonight's meeting.
Yes, of tonight's meeting. I'm sorry. I'm going out in a blaze of glory here.
Yeah, third time's a charm.
I second it.
So, all right, thank you. Any further discussion? Ms. Simmons, would you call the roll, please?
Dr. Harrington,
Aye.
Ms. Mead,
Aye.
Dr. Curran,
Aye.
Mayor Dahl,
Aye.
Mr. Holmes,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Kyer,
Aye.
Ms. Oates.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Now we'll move on to item 2, and it's going to be item A on the regular meeting agenda, which is the discussion of the amendment to the City of Staunton Citizen Participation Plan relating to the administration of the community planning and development programs of the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development related to award of CDBG-CV funds under the CARES Act. Mr. Rosenberg.
Madam Mayor, Mr. Vaughn will present this item.
Madam Mayor, this is Billy Vaughn. I'll try to make this as painless as possible as we deal with a federal agency. But last February 2019, we were notified by HUD that we became a new entitlement community. That meant that we would receive an annual allocation of approximately $340,000 to deal with housing matters. In order to comply with that, we had to prepare a citizen participation plan, a 5-year consolidated plan, and an annual action plan, which were all done and approved by council. Now, because of the pandemic, HUD has provided the city with an additional $207,000. $207,590,000. This, of course, is in response to the pandemic, and it must be used to address any issues that have been created as a result of the pandemic. As a formality, we're required to amend our citizen participation plan. And we have to add policies that address disaster events and emergencies. We're simply adding language, and if you look through the document, it's been highlighted. You can find it on page 13, 14, 17, and 18. It simply states how the city will handle public hearings, advertisements, the length of advertising a publication as it relates to this document, the annual action plan, and the consolidated plan. So after your consideration of the citizen participation plan tonight, which is the first step, we will have another hearing. We will have a hearing at your June the 11th meeting where you will consider the substantial amendments to the annual action plan. Any questions?
Council members, are there any questions? I'm not seeing anybody raise their hand or anything. So I think you must have explained it well. This will be item A on the regular meeting agenda.
I'll try to be as brief during that section.
All right, thank you. Item 3 and B on the regular meeting agenda is the discussion of resolution supporting approval of COPN request number VA-8511 Centera RMH Medical Center to Virginia State Health Commissioner. Mr. Rosenberg?
Madam Mayor, Leslie Beauregard, our Assistant City Manager, will present this item.
Great, thank you, Madam Mayor and members of council. I'll be very brief and then I'm going to introduce our guest and they're going to take it from there. So briefly, Centera RMH Medical Center has requested the city's support and cooperation in connection to its application to the Virginia Department of Health for a certificate of public need for an imaging center to be located within the city of Staunton at Community Way at the former site of Ryan's Steakhouse. And council will recall that on April 23rd, I provided an initial briefing as an informational item. And at that time, the recommendation was to continue the review of this request and an earlier one made by Augusta Health for an imaging center on their campus in Fishersville. So now we're at that evening where both entities are here to present their proposals. And in terms of Centera RMH Medical Center is asking that City Council adopt a resolution expressing its support for the application. Several representatives from Centera are with us this evening, and they will give a short presentation and then leave some room for council questions at the end. I'd like to introduce Doug Moyer, President of Centera Rockingham Memorial Hospital, Blake Seitz, Director of Centera Corporate Strategy and Planning, and Kurt Hoflick, Division Vice President of Centera Ambulatory Services and President of Centera Commercial Real Estate. Phew, long title. I think I'm going to turn it over to Kurt. Kurt, are you sharing your screen?
I've got a green button here that says share screen.
Click on that.
And it says host disabled participant screen share.
Uh-oh.
So Zach, are you there with us?
Yes, I'm here.
Are you able to enable screen sharing for the participants?
I'm not seeing an option to do that at this time.
So what I can suggest is, do you have a deck of slides to share?
Yes, sir.
I can certainly present it.
Yeah, so if we, Zach, do we need to have an email sent to you?
Yes, please. Well, hang on just a second.
Okay.
Hang on just a second. I found the option. All right, go ahead and try again.
Ah, there we go.
Yay.
Thank you, Zach.
Thank
All right,
you.
good deal. Thank you.
Okay, I click share.
We see it, or we will in a minute. There we go.
Okay, so
Oh, we
let's
see an
go
email.
here. Don't want to read my email now.
All right.
Okay, and we'll go to full screen. There we go. Okay, can you all see your beautiful city on my screen?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay, wonderful.
Yes.
I'm going to turn it over to Doug Moyer to kick us off and get us started. Doug?
Thank you, Kurt. I appreciate it. So thank you, Mayor, and thank you, council members, for allowing us a few minutes this evening to share with you some of the kind of the high-level comments about our proposed project in Staunton, the Centera Staunton Outpatient Care Center. Next slide, Kurt. So just a little bit about Centera as a whole. Centera is a 12-hospital system across the Commonwealth of Virginia, also one hospital in North Carolina. Centera is incredibly focused on trying to drive high quality levels at a low cost of care, and that's really important as it relates to the discussion this evening. Oftentimes, hospitals become the center point of care in their communities, and while that continues to be the case in many instances, and care, for example, at RMH has expanded over time, as happens with many hospitals. We've expanded services into a more of a tertiary or high level, such as Open Heart, that expands the footprint of the patients that we serve. On the other hand, cost of care is less expensive if we can do it in a location or a setting that's closer to where patients live, or we center those sites. And so we've begun to do that, and actually Centera has restructured as a company to create an ambulatory care division, of which Kurt is the vice president of. And so, you know, I think that's driven much of how we try to provide the care and reach patients that we serve. Next slide. So what you see in front of you is an example, or actually is our service area. And on the map, you can see the south area is denoted that includes the Staunton market. And so for many, many years, we've served a large population of folks from Staunton and from the south as we have expanded to the west and also to the north. RMH is a 238-bed hospital, and so by size, it's a community facility, as is Martha Jefferson, which is another Sentara facility located in Charlottesville. But as I said, RMH has worked over the years to try to look at and understand what are the true needs of the community and how do we expand to do that. Imaging is certainly one that is very important to us in all the communities that we serve, and at the same time can be a very expensive endeavor for patients to encounter. And so we're excited about the opportunity to introduce this project to you, which would greatly expand services for patients in the Staunton community and around, as well as lower the cost of care. And so with that, I'll turn it back over to Kurt.
Okay, thank you, Doug. Again, this is Kurt Hoflick with Ambulatory Services at Sentara. One point I'll note on this slide is that the proposed project in the city of Staunton is a project that brings us closer to the patients that we currently serve. We do a little over 2,000 CAT scans and a little over 1,200 MRIs a year, where patients are traveling from the zip codes within the Staunton area up to Sentara RMH for services. And we do just under 1,000 inpatient discharges a year for members of the Staunton community. And so as these numbers continue to grow, you know, we felt it was time to take a look at offering more convenient services closer to home, right within the Staunton community. And so the little bit of orientation to the location that we've selected. For those of you that may be familiar, this is the old Ryan Steakhouse building. It's a little over 11,000 square feet. It's positioned very nicely right off of Route 250 and not far from the 220 exit off of Interstate 81. And so it is conveniently located within a rather busy retail and robustly growing retail community. And those are the type of the communities that we look to develop easy to access convenient outpatient services. And so what we are proposing to build is an outpatient center. It does involve advanced imaging, both CAT scanning and MRI scanning, which does require a certificate of public need before you this evening. We are also having primary care physician practices within this facility and physical therapy and sports medicine services. And so within this center, we will have a comprehensive service offering of outpatient services. I put some pictures in here for you. I will note one, because I'll get back to it later when we're talking about technology. This Siemens 1.5 Tesla MRI that you see here is not an image off the internet. Okay, these are actually my MRI techs at an advanced imaging center in Virginia Beach. And the reason we took this picture is because it demonstrates how wide these bores are nowadays, how open and airy they are. They're comfortable to be in, they're not hot, you don't sweat in them, and it's a comfortable environment to have an imaging procedure in, much different than if you had an MRI, say, a decade or a decade and a half ago. The proposed facility design, this building lays out very nicely as an outpatient imaging center. What's kind of behind the colors is the old restaurant layout with all the tables. So we would be coming in and demolishing out all the kitchen functions and the back restaurant functions. That would become the Advanced Imaging Center. Large primary care footprint to house as many as 5 providers in this location. The same size footprint in terms of number of providers for physical therapy, and in a nice convenient setting. The projected capital investment, we're looking at just under $1 million under the letter of intent on the real estate acquisition. The Advanced Imaging Center itself, in terms of construction, a little over 1.2 million there. Equipment for the imaging equipment itself, just under 2.5 million. And then the primary care and physical therapy center, a little over $1 million in construction, and then 750,000 in equipment and IT enabling technologies. So the entire project is going to come in just under 6.5 million. Now, I put this slide in here to talk a little bit about technology, and this is important because we're going to talk about cost, and we're going to talk about appropriate application of technologies. We are proposing to have a 1.5 Tesla MRI and what we refer to as a 64 slice CAT scanner. These are state-of-the-art, brand new imaging technologies. These are technologies that are used by Duke, they're used by Hopkins, they're used by Mayo, they're used in other Sentara hospitals, including our tertiary facilities. Are there 3 Tesla MRIs available in the market? Yes. Are there 7 Tesla MRIs available in the market? Yes. There are 640 slice CAT scanners available in the market. These are very expensive technologies. Their clinical applications differentiate themselves in less than 5% of the total imaging that an outpatient imaging center will perform. And the way I like to explain this in a way that most can understand and relate to is, you know, when you go to the Verizon store and you upgrade your phone, and you're going from a 4 megapixel camera to a 10 megapixel camera, and the price of the phone is $500 more. And the salesperson explains to you that the 10 megapixel camera takes much better quality pictures than the 4 megapixel camera. And you say, great, that's worth the extra $500. But what they don't tell you is that in order to recognize that difference, you would have to blow that picture up to the size of a living room wall picture to recognize the imaging quality between the two, okay? In most applications in imaging, 1.5 Tesla MRI and 64 slice MRI proves quality in over 95% of applications. In the applications where 3 Tesla and 7 Tesla MRI come into play are very, very high-end tertiary quaternary level type imaging applications. We have 3 Tesla MRIs within the Sentara network. They're typically located in our research facilities. And for an application in an outpatient community setting, we want to make sure we have the right technology at the right price point that's affordable and cost effective for the community. The total number of employees that we anticipate within the facility at opening would be about 15.5 total employees, 4.5 clinical for support on the technical technologies, and then 7 support staff. And then once we get over to being fully developed, we would have a total of 38 employees and a projected annual payroll expense of just under $3 million a year. And that represents an average annual salary of just over $77,000 a year per full-time equivalent within the facility. Whoop. So what differentiates a Sentara community-based outpatient imaging center? These outpatient centers, and I have a couple of pictures here of the most recent ones that we've opened in the Hampton Roads area of Virginia. These are very convenient locations. We look for busy retail areas where people are already going 2 to 3 times a week for other services. We try to co-locate in those areas. Easy free parking. On both the primary care and the physical therapy operation, we are now walk-in direct access. No appointments needed, okay? We do appointed follow-up care. If you want to have an appointment or want to schedule an appointment, we will definitely accommodate an appointed time, but we do offer walk-in care. We also have a 24-hour-a-day, 7-day-a-week nurse triage and support line associated with our centers and what we call Us First program. So if you are dealing with a very difficult cold, sinus infection, severe abdominal pain, and you're just not quite sure what to do. Do I go to the ED? Should I go to the urgent care? We have a Call Us First program. You talk to one of our nurse triage, and they screen your condition, and they try to direct you to the most effective and cost-effective approach for you. If it's appropriate for urgent care, we try to get you to urgent care and try to keep you out of the expensive ED environment. We also offer virtual visits for both primary care and physical therapy. These are online digital app-enabled virtual care visits from right in your hand, the digital device. Your physical therapist and your provider appear during a visit, and we can do physical therapy digitally right in your own home. We offer subspecialized radiology services. Radiology has become a clinical subspecialty. You can do extended fellowships in musculoskeletal imaging, neurologic imaging, women's imaging, and we offer the best of subspecialization within all of the imaging services that we offer. And then lastly, we have a digital imaging network. So if you're referred into the facility from your managing physician, our radiologists can get online with your managing physician and do online virtual consults to review your images with your doctor, talk over the findings, discuss a plan of care, see if there's additional imaging that needs to be performed. And if you get referred to a tertiary facility, we can online consult with that tertiary facility as well to make sure that you're not subject to additional imaging that might be done just because, you know, the place that you were referred wants to redo your imaging. So we try our best to make sure that we make all that imaging information available. This is the Sentara app, our virtual care program. This is live. You can download it today by going to the Play Store and put in Sentara app, and you'll be able to download this. You register for a profile, and once you have a profile, your home screen is yours, okay? It welcomes you by name. You can get a virtual care visit by clicking this Get Virtual Care button. You can do an online demand visit 24 hours a day for any type of acute or primary care service. You can renew your medications if you're under management by one of our providers. You can schedule an imaging visit. And once it's time for your visit, you basically enter the app. You hit the time for my visit button, start my video visit, and right here in your hand, your doctor or your physical therapist comes right up on your device, and we can conduct that visit with you in your workplace, in your home, whatever is convenient for you. So we talked a little bit about this phenomenon of hospital-based imaging and non-hospital-based imaging. Why is there a difference? Okay. What you see on the screen here is data. Now this data is from 2011. If you escalate the annual cost of this data, the differentiation between the two pricing models just grows. But in 2011, in a hospital outpatient department, HOPD, the average cost for an MRI was right around $900. The range of cost for that MRI was anywhere between $500 and $1,500. In a community-based, non-hospital-based imaging center, that average cost was $600. And the range you can see was much, much lower. Today, these prices can be all the way up in the $1,400 to $1,600 range in a hospital-based imaging center, but community centers have remained relatively stable in terms of their total cost. Why is that? Well, the fact of the matter is that hospitals and hospital campuses have considerable more capital expenses to recover. Operating rooms, cafeterias, utility plants, intensive care units, running an emergency department. These are all very expensive services. And so to offset the expense of these intense capital services, hospitals tend to negotiate higher outpatient imaging prices to offset some of the losses that we occur on the inpatient side of our business. Hospitals are also obligated to evaluate and stabilize any patient who presents to the emergency department regardless of their ability to pay. Hospitals see a much higher percentage of indigent care, and we partially make up for that risk by contracting higher commercial rates for outpatient imaging services. In freestanding centers, we are directly contracted with a payer outside of a hospital relationship with no factor built in for offsetting the cost that sits elsewhere within the health system. So the cost of the center is the cost we're trying to achieve, and it ends up with a much, much lower cost point and a much lower price point for the consumer. And then this last slide just kind of goes over some of the Staunton tax revenue opportunities that will be available with our project. Our Centerra Real Estate Division is called MPB Inc. It is a separate 501c2 title holding company. And the way it's structured, MPB Inc. would pay Staunton annual real estate asset taxes on the facility itself. Centerra Therapy Solutions LLC is also non-hospital based. The way it's structured, the LLC would pay annual taxes on the tangible assets within the physical therapy center. The Advanced Imaging Center is also set up as a limited liability company, non-hospital based. And as such, it would also pay annual taxes on the tangible assets of the imaging center. And then lastly, Centerra Medical Group itself is a nonprofit 501c3 corporation, but due to this campus being not located on hospital property, many cities that have hospitals have tax exemption for paying property taxes when the hospitals, when the service sits on hospital property. That's not the case in the city of Staunton. But irrelevant, we would pay taxes on the tangible assets of the primary care center as well. And all that represents opportunity for revenue for the city. So in closing, I will state that, in reading through the city council briefing documents this evening with interest, Augusta Health referenced that the state would only approve one of these MRI and CT expansion applications through this COPN process. That is not factual. There are actually 8 statutory requirements that have to be met in order to support approval of a COPN within the Commonwealth of Virginia. And each of those applications stand somewhat on their own, but also come into consideration with the total volume within the service area. So the fact that you have 2 applications in the same service area is one of those 8 criteria, okay? There are plenty of examples in the past where the state has approved both applications of imaging within the same COPN cycle in the same exact scenario that we're dealing with today. And in fact, the state may decide to deny both. The state may decide to approve both. The state may decide to approve one and deny the other. I don't see this as a competitive issue with Augusta. There is no reason, frankly, to put city council in a position where you have to choose one over the other, when in fact, either one or both would benefit the city of Staunton. And so with that, lastly, I would ask that city council, we ask that you respectfully consider our request to adopt our proposed resolutions supporting approval of COPN request number VA 8511 for us to establish an outpatient care center and imaging center within the city of Staunton. And that concludes my remarks. And I'm available for any questions.
Thank you. Council members, if you would state your name if you have a question and then proceed.
Mayor Dahl? Brenda Mead.
Ms. Mead?
Yes. You say you indicated 15 and a half positions to start with and 38 jobs when the facility is at full capacity. Are those net new jobs for Harrison or for the Centera, or are they transfers of positions from Harrisonburg?
These would be net new jobs for Centera.
Okay.
We may have some employees that choose to apply and relocate to the area from both Charlottesville and Harrisonburg, but then, we would be backfilling their positions in their hometown they came from.
And a second question, do you have any local board members?
We do have board members from both the city of Charlottesville and the city of Harrisonburg. Doug, you might be able to speak better to how broad the board members represent from that Blue Ridge region.
Yeah, I think board members live in various locales. I don't know if any of them are in Augusta County per se. I think we've got several that live in Bridgewater, but I'm not as sure of their exact residential addresses.
Thank you.
Yep.
Council members, does anyone else have a question?
Mayor Dahl?
Ms. Oakes? Oh, Dr. Harrington?
Go ahead, Andrea.
Thank you. So you're stating that you would have to pay real estate taxes
Yes, ma'am.
on the facility, the old Ryan Steakhouse building, so you would have to pay the real estate taxes.
Yes, and that specific property is financially distressed. When you look at the acquisition history of the property, it was at a previous time assessed at a much higher level than its current assessment. Once we get in there and kind of redevelop the facility, we would work with the city on reassessing the value given the enhancements and improvements we would make into that facility, and then we would pay annual taxes based on that assessment.
And thank you.
Dr. Harrington?
Thank you. We talked about 5.5 employees at the point at which the facility would open, and eventually 38 employees. Can you give us a sense of the time frame as to how rapidly you would anticipate that build out taking place?
Sure. So typically an outpatient imaging center like this grows very rapidly. We need about anywhere from 1,800 to 2,000 primary care lives per provider before we add another provider. And so in facilities like this, we typically see being at full capacity within a 5-year development plan. So you can imagine year 1, it would be 15.5 is what we would open with. And then we would grow to that 38 number over a 5-year period.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Mayor Dahl, I have another question. This is Brenda Mead.
Ms. Mead? Ms.
I-
Mead?
Yes, thank you. Do I understand that the equipment that you would be installing would also be subject to, in Staunton, we call it a machinery and tools tax? Can somebody confirm that for me?
I had a brief meeting with Commissioner of Revenue Reagan, I hope I'm pronouncing her name appropriately. And we talked through the various tax implications, but essentially the tangible assets, the MRI machine, the CT machine, the chairs, the printer, all of the tangible assets of the facility would be evaluated, and we would be paying, whatever the tax rate is on those assets annually. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions from council members?
Mayor Dahl?
I can't see anybody's picture. So go ahead.
Mayor Dahl, this is Maggie Reagan.
Yes, okay, I didn't know you were on.
Thank you.
If you'd like to address that. Yep.
I don't have a picture, just to call in, but just to confirm for Ms. Mead's question, the tangible assets are would be assessed as personal property, not as machinery and tools.
Thank you, Maggie.
You're welcome.
And specifically, that would be the same as the car tax?
Yes, ma'am.
Because sometimes our personal property tax is known better by car tax than personal property. Any other questions from council members? Well, we thank you so much for providing this this information, and we'll be listening and reviewing both of these, and hope to continue and make a good decision for the city of Staunton. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you for the opportunity.
Blake, would you like to unshare your screen? There we go. Thank you.
There we go.
Yeah, Mr. Rosenberg.
Madam Mayor, we had built into your agenda for the work session a brief 5-minute break. We are running 5 minutes behind schedule as it is, and if council members are amenable, I would suggest that we just continue at this point, and if we are able to end before 7:15, you can have a bit of a longer break on the back end.
All right, council members, is that okay with everyone?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's fine.
Yes.
All right. We'll continue then. So we're at item 4, and it will be C on the regular meeting agenda. The discussion of the resolution supporting approval of COPN request number VA 8500 Augusta Health to Virginia State Health Commissioner. Ms. Beauregard.
Okay, thank you. Am I unmuted? Yes, okay. So very similar to what I said previously, Augusta Health has requested the city's support in cooperation in connection with their application to the Virginia Department of Health for a certificate of public need for an imaging center to be located on its campus in Fishersville in Augusta County. And again, I gave a briefing on April 23rd as an informational item. Staff has had the time to review both of these applications, and so Augusta Health is also here to present their proposal to you and to answer any questions that you have. So I would like to now introduce Mark LaRosa, who's the Vice President for Business Development and Chief Strategy Officer. And I'm actually going to let him introduce the guest he has with him because I'm not sure I can see who he has. So Mark, are you there?
I believe he's muted.
Oh, I can't see him right now.
Mr. LaRosa, your screen is showing that your audio is muted. There you go.
Okay, can you hear us now?
Yes, we hear you. Yes, thank you.
Great. Thank you very much, Leslie. So what I'd like to do is introduce our presenters this evening. So Madam Mayor Dahl, Vice Mayor Kyer, council members, I have with me two individuals who are going to help with our presentation this evening. To my right, which is this direction, I have Reverend John Peterson, who is current Augusta Health board member and past president. He's also pastor of Covenant Presbyterian Church. To my left, I have Dr. William Doherty, who is Chief Medical Officer. I have regret from Mary Mannix, who is President and Chief Executive Officer. She had a previous commitment tonight, a board meeting that she actually runs, and will be here if she can make it before the end of the presentation. Also, over my left shoulder, I have Scott Crabtree, who is Assistant Vice President of Operations at Augusta Health. Thank you for the time to actually tell you about this great initiative that we have for our community. Let me tell you about your investment in this community. This is just one of the investments that you have made over the number of years. We want to tell you about some of those investments and how they produce a return, and how this project will also produce a return. So why are we here today? Oh, what we probably need to do before I move on any further is share our presentation. Can you see the presentation?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
Good. Thank you. So why are we here today? We're requesting a resolution of support from Staunton City for one additional CT and MRI that will be reviewed by the State Virginia Department of Health through their COPN process. The CT and MRI will be a part of a state-of-the-art freestanding imaging center providing services at approximately 30% less cost to patients. And thanks to my colleagues from Centera, who did a great job of explaining the difference between HOPD and freestanding facilities. You've now got the detail behind why there is an average of about a 30% difference. It's more than likely that the state will recognize the need for only one additional CT and MRI. Yes, it's based on the district's combined analysis. However, that analysis will most likely produce a result of only one to be approved. Keep in mind that our analysis focuses primarily on the Staunton, Augusta County, Waynesboro area. The utilization numbers that you see from Centera also take into consideration the utilization issues that they're having with Rockingham facility. So we believe that we're in a fight here to be able to have that additional CT scanner and MRI. Augusta Health is competing with Centera, as I mentioned, in our community. And so that's the reason for this meeting tonight, to be able to help you, council members, see the differences and answer your questions about these proposals. And at this time, I'd like to turn it over to Reverend Peterson to tell you a little bit about the history and your investment that you made in Augusta Health.
So thanks very much for giving us the opportunity to talk with you. There was a time when I was the young guy, but I am here tonight because I am now the old guy. After 25 years in Staunton and 15 years on and around the board, I'm the bearer of some of the history, much of which you all have been part of as well. We have been down this road before with regard to someone wanting to come in from the outside and build a facility in our community in order to skim off profitable services. Some of you remember Perillian attempted that a few years back, just a few blocks from where the proposed Centera site is, and the whole community rose up and turned out and said, no, not in our community. It was striking to me at the beginning of Centera's presentation when they showed you the picture of the city and said, this is your beautiful city. Well, this is our beautiful city. I mean, this is home. And all of you have a stake in our hospital, our community hospital, which is Augusta Health. If you see on the screen there, you all remember, some of you may have been born there at King's Daughters Hospital when folks in this community in Waynesboro together had a vision to say we can do more together than we can do apart. So joined together community resources to build a single medical center. And if you look at the next screen, you'll see how much that growth has changed from the original King's Daughters to this. We've been able to do so much more than what either hospital could have done on their own. But it is our hospital. It is our community hospital. It is the resources of Staunton that helped to build this and make this happen and continues to help it grow over the years. It is a community hospital, one of 5 community hospitals left in the state of Virginia. Centera is a large health system based in Eastern Virginia. We're a community health system where our board members live in the community. Decisions are made for our community by folks who understand what the important issues are there. And so we not only have managed to do that, to expand services locally, but to do so in a way that's garnered national recognition. And so we're proud of what we have been able to do, and you are part of that already. And as we make our request for you, it's to ask you to support something that you have been long invested in already and that has provided good return for you. And Mark's going to talk a little bit more about that.
So let me talk a little bit on an annual basis, tell you what your investment is producing. Just to highlight some of these statistics, we have 2,200 employees, of which 25% of those employees reside in Staunton today. That number has grown significantly since you invested with King's Daughters 25 years ago. It has became an economic engine for our community. We have 190 Augusta medical clinicians that have come to the community since it was developed and now are part of our network of employed physicians. 8 of those physicians and providers have offices in Staunton City today and service through the Urgent Care Center and the Staunton Medical Associates Office. We also have 4 urgent care centers, of which 1 is located in Staunton and has x-ray services, mammography, and bone density. And it will be interesting to see, it's interesting that Centera is indicating that they are not going to have x-ray services in a facility which has sports medicine, physical therapy, and advanced imaging services. But it's important to note that x-ray services are one of the most high volume services in an imaging center. And as you can see from the rest of these statistics, we're a very active facility that you created 25 years ago. Some of the services that we've added, that you've added over the last 25 years, there's many of them. I want to point out a few: heart and vascular, electrophysiology, heart failure clinic, a cath lab. A cath lab was placed here so that patients who have emergency situations from Staunton and West can get to a cardiac cath lab quickly without having to go all the way to Charlottesville. Stroke center, robotic surgery, thoracic surgery, neurosurgery. These are all services that have been created from your investment that now those patients can get their care here locally. That wasn't the case 25 years ago. You've made a wise investment. We also offer services like behavioral health, many services that are not necessarily profitable. We just added a number of counselors to take care of adolescent behavioral health services. That's what a community hospital does. It also has a farm that's integral to the service, to the agricultural community here. Through your investment, you developed a healthcare hub in Lakeport and also at Augusta Health that now has over 50 practices and 185 physicians, of which diagnostic services are key to those practices. Those physicians make many referrals to CT and MRI, which are currently located at Augusta Health. All we're proposing is to put that freestanding facility right on the campus, close to these practices where 185 physicians work. It's also attracted assisted living facilities and other healthcare services to this hub that you created. And I'd like to turn it back over to John to speak to the community partnerships that we have.
So part of being a community hospital means that you care for everybody. And if you say, well, what's the cost of doing that and caring for everybody? You can see on there's about a $20 million per year commitment to providing those services, which ends up either through financial assistance, which is provided, shortfalls in Medicaid where we're not reimbursed for the cost of treatment fully, and then other improvements in subsidized health services that benefit the larger community. In order to do those things, there have to be profitable streams of income to do that, and imaging tends to be one of those that helps make those things happen in order to meet those kinds of needs in the community. We're also partners with a wide range of folks within the community, many oriented toward providing health services. Mark talked a little bit about the farm that's there, but we have screenings in the community and beyond, the food pharmacy, diabetes prevention program, lots of workforce development, the community nurse network, which is connected with faith communities in Staunton and Augusta County. Lots of opportunities to reach out to folks in the community, not just to provide treatment afterwards, but to provide for their health as well. We're also partners with a wide range of community nonprofits. And you can just see a brief list of all of those there. I'm not going to go through them. You know most of them already, which is to say these are things that we do in partnership together with the others that are in our community. And we are an economic engine. We're the largest employer in the area. A quarter of those employees live in Staunton. We have, by providing outstanding service, we become attractive to folks who want to move to the community. At least in my congregation, folks say, it's not only a beautiful place to live, but we have great health care nearby, and that's a consideration in their decisions as well. So it provides not only broader economic benefit, but also meets the needs as a community hospital should of the community, directed by folks in the community. And so with that, I'm going to turn it over to Bill to talk with you a moment or two, because I think one of the great examples of being a community hospital has been our role in working together with you in COVID-19 response.
Thank you, Reverend Peterson, and good evening, everyone. I'm Bill Doherty. I'm the Chief Medical Officer here at Augusta Health. So one of the great things about an independent community hospital is its commitment and genuine support for the communities that it serves. And no better example of that is our response to the COVID-19 pandemic and what we've done to our communities, including for the city of Staunton. As the COVID-19 pandemic hit the shores of the United States, we were on this right off the bat. We paid attention to the growing concerns. By mid-March, we stood up our incident command center. Through that process, we dusted off our surge planning capabilities and how to house patients in a growing pandemic. In very short order, we created several physical plan changes to be able to treat all of the patients that we modeled would be impacted by this disease and need to be cared for on our campus, including the residents potentially from the city of Staunton. And we're able to take care of all those patients right here on our campus. We stood up a respiratory assessment center that included testing capability and we directed patients with any respiratory conditions or concerns, including from our urgent care site in Staunton, over to the Respiratory Assessment Center for evaluation and potential testing. We also stood up a community call center, which was staffed eventually 7 days a week by nurses to be able to take in calls with any concerns they may have around this burgeoning disease. We expanded our internal and external communications around this to educate not only our employees, many of whom live in Staunton, as you know, but also our external education to the cities and towns that we serve, and most notable our partnership with WHSB with that. We set up a COVID care management team. We used our case managers from our clinically integrated network to support patients during their testing phase, and most specifically those that ended up being COVID positive, and to support them at home, questions about isolation, and provided care and isolation kits for them. We also created a critical care response team to protect the safety of all employees and patients here. We expanded our telehealth capability, brought on a spiritual care call line for our patients and providers here in this very stressful time for care. And most notably, what we recently did with Rittenhour Rest Home on North Coulter to support that facility. As we work through our response to COVID-19, we went out and partnered with long-term care facilities, assisted living facilities, around equipment, supplies, PPE, education on proper use of PPE, infection control risk, and stood up the possibility of doing some testing. We were able to execute on that about 3 weeks ago when there was an outbreak at Rittenhour Rest Home. We got wind of that. We were able to go in and within 1 day assess the facility, tested nearly 24 staff and patients when there was a small outbreak, found those that were positive, able to do the right thing to isolate those patients, actually care for some here on the campus, to take care of them, those that needed hospitalization, and brought them back to that facility. We were able to do that in short order, again, within 24 hours, and supported the Department of Health here locally that was not able to respond in such a quick manner. I've also worked closely with our private-public partnership. We have worked through partners with the City of Staunton, with Waynesboro, community leaders, with philanthropic organizations, church groups, and managers of both the city, the county, and we've been able to work through that around supporting businesses, industry, what we would do for nonprofits and community, and then also our vulnerable patients, those that were pending testing and needed shelter and coming out of long-term care facilities and the like. So let me now speak around our commitment to advanced imaging services at Augusta Health at a lower cost. You go to the next slide, please, Mark. Thank you. So Augusta Health proposes to have the first non-hospital freestanding diagnostic imaging center in the planning district here. This proposed is going to be located on the north side of our campus. It will be along Lightcore Drive, which, as Mark had indicated earlier, we now have 50 independent and individual physician practices along Lightcore with 185 physicians in total. It is readily accessible right on the Bright Bus route. This will provide continuity of care for our patients. It is in close proximity to the hospital, so it will allow efficient and safe treatment right in this close into the hospital environment. The City of Staunton residents in the region will now have access to the latest in MRI and CT technology. We are planning on installing a 3 Tesla MRI unit. As indicated, that is more advanced technology than the 1.5 Tesla, and it does allow better quality images and can be used for more advanced capabilities of imaging. Right now, there are times when we have to send our patients over the mountain to UVA for some of the imaging needs. In addition, that would stand the same for our 128 slice CT, advanced from our current 64 slice capability. Right now, we have 3 CT scanners and 2 MRI scanners on our campus. We are outgrowing those, our capabilities right now, given our volumes. In 2019, we operated 107% of the state medical facilities plan for volume of our CAT scan and at 75% for MR. However, if you look at the days waiting, it's about a 12 business day wait for an MR procedure and 7 days for routine CT scan imaging. So this does impact our patients' ability to get imaging in a timely manner and the diagnosis that they need as quickly as possible. Certainly for MR, it seems at 75%, it seems a lot tighter than that, 75, just based on our wait times. With this additional capability, we can assure the city of Staunton and environs of timely delivery of outpatient procedures. And in addition, we'll be able to support better inpatient, emergent, and specialized needs here on the campus within the hospital building. Excuse me. It's designed to support, our additional capacity is designed to support existing Augusta Health patients in our communities that we serve. I'll have Mark continue now. Mark will talk some details on our COPN application.
Thank you, Bill. Just a correction on the last page, and I went back and I looked. We are actually at 114% on the CT scanner for 2019, not 107%. That is what was filed with our application. There's a typo. So let's talk a little bit about the volume that would be able to go through this CT and MRI scanners in our imaging center. There's about 13,297 outpatient cases that we saw in 2019. Certainly, we've had an increase in CT and MRI cases over the last 2 years. Over 2 years, it's 8.9%. If you average that, it's about 4.5%. The thing I have to caution you is when you're looking at increases in numbers, be careful because you're looking at also the size of the market share. So when you're looking at, I just did some rough math here, on the 3,100 cases that Centera mentioned that they see from the service area, that's roughly about 20% when you add our numbers in from the service area of the total market, without including what is going to UVA. And that UVA is also seeing a significant number of CT and particularly MRI cases from our market, hence the reason for the 3T MRI. There's a number of prostate cancer patients who would benefit from having a 3T scanner. See, this is the difference in a local hospital. We're focused on the needs of this region and building the technology that's available for the region. This is a facility that's going to be located on our campus and support the physician base here and help to keep those patients and those services here in the community. Hence, the community needs a 3T scanner and a higher, a 3T MRI and 128 slice scanner. We've had significant, overwhelming community support for what we're trying to do with the CT and the MRI and the imaging center, and particularly offering that freestanding ability, that freestanding service in our community. We've gotten unanimous Augusta board support. Now keep in mind, when they made that support, they realized that we're really doing this for our community. These patients are coming right out of our hospital, going across the campus, and we're accepting about 30% less on the dollar reimbursement. We're not going to another community trying to get incremental revenue to come back to Augusta Health. We're taking care of our community first. There's over 2,200 signatures today on our website of support, and that continues to grow every day. That's 435 from Staunton alone. We've got over 600 letters of support from local businesses and physicians, and that number keeps growing. You know, council members, that there's been over 170 letters of support that went from Augusta Health to your email boxes from our employees, and that support emphasized that there should only be one resolution that's supported this evening. We also have resolutions of support from Waynesboro City Council, Waynesboro Economic Development Authority. Matter of fact, when we went to Waynesboro City Council, they said, what else can we do? Can we get the Economic Development Authority to approve this? This really is important for the economics of the SAW, and so they provided a resolution too. The Augusta County Board of Supervisors provided a resolution of support and also a letter of support. The Greater Augusta Regional Chamber of Commerce endorsed it and provided a resolution of support because they see the economic engine that we have. They also see that a lot of them are self-insured businesses in our area, businesses in Staunton that can benefit from having a low-cost facility for their employees who currently use Augusta Health. And then the Augusta Health Medical Executive Committee was on board and supported us. So clearly there's been a community swell of support to continue returns on the investment that you made 25 years ago. And we're hoping that Staunton City will support that this evening. So let me just touch on Centerra's proposal as they have the opportunity to provide some comments on our summary. First of all, it's pretty clear that Centerra is moving out of their historic local service area and encroaching on Augusta Health's patient population. They refer to 3,000 cases from this area that they service, which is a small portion of their total patient base. Most of their operations are in Harrisonburg. Centerra's project would harm Augusta Health's financial well-being and will impede progress stemming from Staunton and Waynesboro initial investment. You've done a great job, Staunton, and so has Waynesboro. That investment continues to pay returns today. If you approve even 2 resolutions, or if the state approves 2 resolutions, there's only so much volume in the market to go around. It's got to be divided up. And some of that's going to come out of Augusta Health, and some of it's going to come out of the revenue that goes back to the services and back to the community involvement that we provide today. Centerra's reactive tactic to Augusta Health's initiative, which introduced duplication of services. Their proposed location is just 5 miles from Augusta Health. It's pretty obvious that we don't need to have 2 services, freestanding facilities within 5 miles of each other. And I think the state may see that too. Revenues from Centerra's project will reduce healthcare revenue available to SAW and shift revenue to Centerra's system headquartered in Tidewater. They mentioned they're a multi-hospital health system. This is what multi-hospital health systems do. They need to have additional market share to be able to pay for their systems. The revenue from this, as there may be some tax revenue that might come back to Staunton, that's a short-term gain. There will be revenue come out of your healthcare system that you invested in that will go to the Tidewater area. In other markets, Centerra's history is to start with imaging services and then add other revenue-generating services. And this is their MO. Folks, you need to understand that CT is the linchpin to freestanding emergency services. CT requires a COPN approval. Freestanding ED does not. So once you get the license for a freestanding CT and center, you can build freestanding emergency services around that. And as that sounds like a nice proposition for Staunton and having a lot of activity and revenue come from that, that revenue comes from somewhere. It comes from Augusta Health. It comes out of the ED. It comes out of the ancillary services that we have. And guess what? There's only so many people we need to provide those services. There's only so many patients in this market. It can't be divided up. So we're asking for your support to really preserve your investment. Augusta Health is requesting Staunton City Council provide a resolution of support for the COPN 8500 for establishing a freestanding imaging center with the addition of one CT and MRI to be reviewed and approved by Virginia Department of Health in their Division of COPM Review. And we are asking Staunton City Council would provide Augusta Health the only resolution of support for this COPM application. Folks, this is more than a CT and an MRI. It's more than an imaging center. It's about your investment. It's about the healthcare services you've created in this area. It's about preserving that investment. There's a bigger picture here. And I hope we've been able to share that picture with you tonight and that you can see that. And I close for questions.
Thank you so much. Council members, if you have a question, please state your name and then proceed with your question.
Madam Mayor, it's Terry Holmes.
Mr. Holmes?
A couple of questions. Would you combine the CT and an MRI from the hospital into this building also?
So let me make sure I understand your question. Are you saying that might we move one out of the hospital? Our need is such that we need to have an additional CT scanner.
Oh.
So basically, we're taking the outpatient services out of the hospital and putting them in the center.
Okay. And how many new jobs would that provide?
The new jobs for supporting CT and MRI services are about 8. But keep in mind, we're doing this efficiently. And so if we're moving business just across the campus to our new facility, some of those employees will actually just move across the campus. We need to keep employees at the facility for emergency services, for those that CT scanner, for the inpatient cases that we have. And really what we're trying to do is create a dedicated outpatient center.
And one other question, I guess, you know, with all this here, this would also help Mary Baldwin with their school, the Denning School there. They would all be able to use all this facilities and stuff just like they are now?
Absolutely, absolutely. It would be the next step of evolution for this healthcare village you created.
That was all. Thank you.
All right, thanks. Any other council members with questions?
Mayor Dahl, this is Brenda Mead.
Ms. Mead?
You mentioned in your proposal that you provide a significant subsidy to the Bright transportation system to support public transportation. Can you tell me a little bit more about that? What does significant mean?
We're fortunate that our Chief Executive Officer, Mary Mannix, actually has just joined us. And I know she knows more about this, so I'm going to ask her to jump in.
Yes, well, the transportation system is a contribution that Augusta Health has made for many years that preceded myself. And we feel that it's really important for that 250 connector to be able to serve both of the communities. And so we actually make a significant contribution. I don't have that number off the top of my head. I want to say it's at minimum perhaps between $50,000 and $75,000 a year, but I would not want you to quote me on that. I would want to validate that number. But we do provide that subsidy. We've done that on an annual basis to promote transportation and to improve access for the residents of our community.
Council members, any other questions?
Mayor Dole, this is Andrea Oakes.
Ms. Oakes?
I have a question. Okay, it was my understanding that Centera RMH would not be paying real estate taxes. And now tonight I have learned that they will be, along with the personal property taxes. Can you tell me the financial benefits that Augusta Health could provide to the city of Staunton to offset the taxes that we would have received from Centera RMH?
So the first benefit is, it goes back to a lot of what we've been saying. There's advantages and disadvantages. The advantages are to the residents of the area, of the region, will have access. I mentioned that there's 13,000 outpatients that will have access to lower cost care, 30% lower cost imaging services. The businesses will have access to that 30% lower cost. And so as where Centera is saying that they're going to support their 3,100 patients, we're going to support 13,000 right there, of which many of those reside in Staunton. So right away, there's a healthcare benefit. On the disadvantage side, it goes back to everything that we've talked about. There is a revenue stream coming from imaging services, which comes back to Augusta Health. If you cut that revenue stream, you take away the services that Augusta Health can provide. You reduce our ability to work in the community. That revenue stream you created from your investment. And I don't know whether anybody else in the room has anything else that they'd like to add.
Well, it's also the financial stability of the residents, the tax-paying residents that currently live in Staunton, which is 25% of our workforce. That is put at risk. I would also state that we have a significant investment that I know Reverend Peterson has already reviewed regarding the investment we make in our community every year for community benefit. And so that's something that you can monetize. In fact, it's monetized at $20 million a year. And I also know that he gave the example of what we're doing with improving the health of the community in the Staunton area, in communal areas such as with the Rittenhour House. So those are all investments that we are currently making and that we will be able to continue to make if our economic model remains sound. If our economic model is put at risk, then all of those services are put at risk. Not only the household income of employees that we have that live in Staunton and elsewhere, but also some of the other services that we provide, such as behavioral health. Typically, when you have to make really tough decisions about service lines, the ones that are losing money are the first to go. And this would be kind of the snowball effect of having another provider come in a predatory fashion and encroach upon our market. And then, again, it continues, the snowball effect continues to be, are we still able to provide the community benefit services that we provide, not only subsidizing needed health services of the community, but also our ability to continue with the charity care policy that we have that goes up to 400% of the federal poverty level. We provide hundreds of thousands of dollars every year to our fellow not-for-profits that are aligned with us in improving the health of the community through the Community Partnership Committee of the board. That gets put at risk. So to answer your question, I would say much of our current investment is put at risk with Centera's proposal. So I think you have to net what Centera has stated this evening, that they would be contributing to the tax base of Staunton with a much larger number, and that is the $20 million of community benefit, the household income of the residents of Staunton that are employed by Augusta Health and have been gainfully employed throughout the entire COVID-19 pandemic, and also some of the services that Staunton residents receive that operate at a loss, but being able to provide services such as imaging allow us to continue to provide to the community.
All right, well, thank you so much for your presentation. We're running a little behind on our schedule here, but that was very helpful. And so we will be considering these either tonight or we may. Is there a deadline when you would need this letter of support by?
Well, certainly we would like to have the letter of the resolution support as soon as possible. We made this request back in April, and then were deferred when Centera came in at the last moment and decided they wanted one. So we're hoping that we can move forward with this quickly and have that show the state that we have everyone from the community involved.
And it would be very helpful to complete our application, which we've already submitted without this component.
Yes.
Mayor Dahl, may I
Yes.
say something? So I'll just add to that. I've been in touch with the Virginia Department of Health and the individual who manages the COPN program, and he stated their public hearing has not been scheduled yet. So in terms of timing, according to him, as long as something is submitted from City Council by early July, he says that's completely fine. From their process, it won't matter for their process necessarily. They will still consider it just as heavily as if they had received it earlier. So that's what I was told from the Virginia Department of Health.
All right, thank you. So council members, tonight we'll be addressing this in the regular meeting, and we have choices. We can decide to approve a particular request, or to take no action on a particular request, or to continue this to the June 11th council meeting. Clearly, representatives of Augusta Health indicate they'd rather have this sooner than later. But anyway, that's kind of the things that we're going to have to decide on as we go through the regular meeting tonight. Well, thank you so much for the presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity to present.
Thank you.
Well, we are running late. I don't know how long the update item 5, if it can be done in 5 minutes.
No,
or not.
I would suggest that we, that council proceed with its break at this time, and then we can provide the update concerning COVID-19 recovery planning as the last item on the regular meeting agenda. It won't take long, but I think it will be a bit rushed to do it within 5 minutes.
Right. So, so will we, can someone make that motion to add that to the agenda? I guess we could do that now, couldn't we? Mr. Gwynn? Or Mr. Rosenberg, should someone make the motion now to add that to the regular meeting agenda?
I think that would be fine, Madam Mayor.
Okay, someone,
Mayor
some
Dahl.
council member want to make?
Mayor Dahl, this is
Ms.
Frank
Mead?
Mead. I move to add item 6 to the regular meeting agenda.
Item 5.
I beg your pardon, item 5.
I second.
And that would be item E. It would become item E on the regular meeting agenda.
Yes.
All right, and we've got a second. Any further discussion? If there is none, Ms. Simmons, would you call the roll, please?
Mayor Dahl,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Kyer,
Aye.
Ms. Oakes,
Aye.
Mr. Holmes,
Aye.
Dr. Harrington,
Aye.
Ms. Mead,
Aye.
Dr. Curran. Dr. Curran?
Jim?
Aye.
Motion carries.
All right, thank you. We're now on break until the regular meeting starts at 7:30. Good evening. As mayor, I call this electronic communications meeting of Staunton City Council to order. I note that this meeting is being convened with city council members using the Zoom platform, broadcast over the city's cable channel, and streamed live on the city's website so that members of the public may hear our meeting. The meeting is also being recorded. At this time, I ask the clerk of council to call the roll for confirmation of those council members present for today's meeting. Ms.
Mayor Dahl,
Here.
Vice Mayor Kyer,
Here.
Mr. Holmes,
Here.
Ms. Oakes,
Here.
Dr. Harrington,
Here.
Ms. Mead,
Here.
Dr. Curran.
Here.
I've confirmed all council members are present.
Thank you. I ask that City Manager Steve Rosenberg now identify his location and those city officials or colleagues, if any, present with him at that location, and the participation of anyone else during today's meeting by Zoom or telephone. Mr. Rosenberg.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I am participating this evening from my residence in Staunton. There's no one with me at this location. Other city officials who are participating on the Zoom platform include Faith Simmons, Clerk of Council, Leslie Beauregard, Assistant City Manager, Doug Gwynn, City Attorney, Phil Traer, Chief Finance Officer, Billy Vaughn, Community Development and Economic Development Director, Cheryl Wagner, Tourism Director, and Maggie Reagan, Commissioner of the Revenue. In addition, we have other participants with us on the Zoom platform this evening. Representing Augusta Health, we're joined by Mary Mannix, Mark LaRosa, and John Peterson. And representing Centera RMH, Doug Moyer, Blake Seitz, and Kurt Hofflick. And I also share with council members and the public that on the Zoom platform as attendees this evening are 3 council members elect, including Steve Claffey, Amy Darby, and Mark Robertson, whose terms will begin on July 1st. Thank you.
Please let me mention that notice reasonable under the circumstances of the electronic communications nature of this meeting has been given to the public contemporaneously with the notice provided to members of City Council. This meeting has also been publicized over the course of the past week on the city's website and Facebook page. Access to this meeting has been provided to the public by audio feed on the city's cable channel and the city's website. During matters from the public on council's agenda toward the end of the meeting, public comments will be taken. Members of the public who wish to participate in matters from the public at the appropriate time may call 844-854-2222, and when prompted, enter the access code 619358 followed by the pound sign. Callers will be recognized in order. The public is reminded that matters from the public is a time for council simply to listen to your comments. Each speaker will be limited to 5 minutes. Detailed instructions for public participation have been publicized over the course of the past week on the city's website and Facebook page and can be found now on the agenda for this meeting and on council's website at www.ci.stanton.va.us/government/city-council. Also, let me highlight and have reflected in the meeting minutes that this meeting is being conducted by Zoom, given the catastrophic nature of the declared emergency and disaster related to the COVID-19 outbreak, which as part of the total circumstances makes it impracticable or unsafe to assemble a quorum in a single location. The meeting is being held consistent with City Council Ordinance 2020-04 regarding continuity of government, a copy of which can be found online at www.stanton.va.us/COGORD 2020-04. Given that we are conducting this meeting by Zoom, with the meeting being live streamed on the city's website and broadcast over the cable system as it occurs, I believe it merits reminder of a few special requests as we undertake this meeting in this unique format. First, I emphasize the request that each speaker speak loudly and slowly and self-identify each and every time when speaking, so that it will be clear who is speaking before your remarks are made. Second, please pause after each speaker to allow a brief interval between that speaker and another speaker. Third, if for any reason a participant cannot clearly hear the speaker or must leave the meeting before it is adjourned, please let us know. Fourth, all votes will be taken by roll call and recorded in the minutes. Fifth, I ask that if any member of City Council has to leave the meeting for any period of time, to please interject and make an announcement so that the clerk may make note of attendance in the minutes. I ask that you also announce your return so it also may be reflected in the meeting minutes. Finally, I ask everyone's patience because without being in the same room, it is likely that a speaker may not realize that another speaker is continuing. Again, we may unintentionally step on each other's words, so it's fine if we need to have the speaker repeat or clarify. We will take whatever time is necessary so that everyone is clear about what is being said and by whom. I will now take questions from council members and participants if you have any questions about the process. So council members, do you have any questions about this process? I don't have that memorized quite yet, but I'm getting there. All right, so with no questions, our next item would be the Pledge of Allegiance. So if we have that available on the screen, and for anyone who is willing and able, please stand and face that image and repeat the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I should have muted my microphone.
Next, we have the mayor's report. The only thing that I would have at this time is to hope that everyone had the best Memorial Day that's possible and took the time to reflect on those who died in the service of our country. I think most of us have had relatives and friends who have given their lives in service to the country, and as well a moment of reflection for the over 100,000 people who have died in less than 4 months of the COVID-19 crisis. And with that, I will ask if there are any additional members, items by members of council.
Mayor Dull?
Vice Mayor Kyle?
Mayor Dull?
Yes. The Nominations Committee has a report to present, and I'll give you the following. The Bicycle Pedestrian Advisory Committee to reappoint Sarah Holberg to another 2-year term beginning July 1st, 2020 and expiring June 30th, 2022. To the Historic Preservation Commission, to reappoint Michael Brown and Dennis Blanton to another 3-year term beginning August 1st, 2020 and expiring July 31st, 2023. To the Joint IDA to reappoint Michael Norris to another 4-year term beginning July 1st, 2020 and expiring June 30th, 2024. To the Youth Commission to reappoint Erica Bischoff to a 3-year term beginning July 1st, 2020 and expiring June 30th, 2023. To the Ag Forestry Advisory Committee to appoint Stephen Talley to an unlimited term beginning June 1st, 2020. And to the Recreational Advisory Commission to appoint Maya Kotsiva for a 3-year term beginning July 1st, 2020 and expiring June 30th, 2023. The 3 is missing, but 2023. And I would like to present that in the form of a motion.
All right, thank you. Is there a second?
Mayor Dahl, this is Brenda Mead.
Yes?
I second the motion.
All right, thank you. Any further discussion? Ms. Simmons, would you call the roll, please?
Ms. Oakes,
Aye.
Dr. Curran,
Aye.
Mayor Dahl,
Aye.
Dr. Harrington, Dr. Harrington, Ms. Mead,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Kyer.
Aye.
Motion carries.
You didn't call me.
Oh, I apologize, Mr. Holmes.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Have we lost Dr. Harrington?
It appears so, Madam Mayor, and I've just asked IT to reach out to him to see if they can assist.
All right, thanks.
There, Jim's coming back on, I think.
Hey, I just blacked out there. I don't know what happened.
I think it's not too late for you to vote on the nominations. Did you hear them?
Yes, I did hear them. I vote aye.
Motion carries.
All right, thank you. Next, we have the approval of the minutes for the work session of May 7th, 2020, and the work session and regular meeting of May 14th, 2020. You've had an opportunity to review them, so I would entertain a motion at this time.
Mayor Dahl, this is Brenda Mead.
Ms. Mead?
I move to approve the minutes of the work session of May 7th, 2020, and the minutes of the work session and regular meeting of May 14th, 2020.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I second Terry Holmes.
Thank you, Mr. Holmes. Any further discussion? Ms. Simmons, would you call the roll, please?
Vice Mayor Kyer,
Aye.
Ms. Mead,
Aye.
Mr. Holmes,
Aye.
Dr. Harrington,
Aye.
Ms. Oakes,
Aye.
Mayor Dahl,
Aye.
Dr. Curran.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Item A is a consideration of amendment to the City of Staunton Citizen Participation Plan relating to the administration of the community planning and development programs of the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development related to award of CDBG CV funds under the CARES Act. Mr. Rosenberg.
Madam Mayor, Mr. Vaughn, the city's Community Development Director, will present this item.
Madam Mayor, members of council, this is Billy Vaughn. In February of 2019, the city received official confirmation of its designation as a HUD entitlement community. Under this program designation, the city had to comply with the regulations and prepare a citizen participation plan, annual action plan, and a 5-year consolidated plan. And that was done and approved by council in June of 2019. As a result of the current pandemic, the city has received notification from HUD that it will receive an additional $207,000 in CDBG COVID-19 funding. This will be used to address issues related to the pandemic. As a formality, we are required to amend our citizen participation plan by adding policies for disaster events and emergency. It simply states that as simply stated, it is highlighted in the CPP how the city will handle the public meetings, public advertisements, and the list and the length of publications. As it relates to this document, the annual action plan and the CP, you will find these proposed amendments on pages 13, 14, 17, and 18. After your consideration of this plan, the next step will be for a public hearing on June 11th to consider substantial amendments to the annual action plan. It is recommended by staff that council adopt the amended citizen participation plan before you.
All right, thank you. Council members, do you have any questions? Although it does look like we've lost Dr. Harrington again.
I'm here. It's just my camera turned off.
Okay.
So still got my
right.
shirt on and everything.
Okay. All right. So are there any questions about this? It's pretty much almost a housekeeping thing to make sure that we have all of the information about emergency actions that we would have to take. And so if there are no questions, I would entertain a motion at this time.
Mayor Dahl?
Vice Mayor Kyer?
Yes. I move to adopt, enlarge this here. I move to adopt the amended citizen participation plan to reflect the Department of Housing and Urban Development guidance concerning the administration of community development block grant program funds in response to the emergencies as presented.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Dr. Curran. Any further discussion? If not, Ms. Simmons, would you call the roll, please?
Vice Mayor Kyer,
Aye.
Ms. Mead,
Aye.
Mr. Holmes,
Aye.
Dr. Harrington,
Aye.
Ms. Oates,
Aye.
Mayor Dahl,
Aye.
Dr. Curran.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Item B is consideration of resolution supporting approval of COPN request number VA 8511, Centera RMH to Virginia State Health Commissioner. Ms. Beauregard.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Dahl. So Centera RMH, as you heard earlier, has applied to the Virginia Department of Health for a certificate of public need for new imaging facilities to be included as a part of an outpatient pavilion in the city of Staunton at Community Way. And the application proposes 1 MRI scanner and 1 CT scanner to enhance the level of service to Centera RMH Medical Center service area. And Centera RMH is asking that City Council adopt a resolution expressing your support for the application. You heard many more details about this proposal during your work session, and I would now ask our guest from Centera RMH Medical Center to provide a very quick and brief summary of their proposal, much more abbreviated than what we heard earlier. And then we can have some final questions, or if there are any from council, and then the consideration. So, Doug or Kurt?
Yes. So this is Kurt Huflick with Centera Healthcare, and thank you for the opportunity to summarize our request. The establishment of this outpatient imaging center within the city of Staunton will improve access to community members in Staunton that Centera RMH already serves today. We established the number of patients that travel to Harrisonburg to seek services from Staunton. I will clarify one inaccuracy presented by my colleagues with Augusta. X-ray services are not subject to COPN, so we did not emphasize that program within our resolution, but all advanced imaging centers in Centera have X-ray services in addition to CT and MRI services. So we will have that at the proposed facility. The location is conveniently located in a retail facility, repurposing a building that's been vacant in the city of Staunton for over a decade. It's 11,000 square feet. The program would be proposed at a lower cost option, non-hospital based imaging center, and will offer lower copay and lower cost options for the residents within the city of Staunton. Our proposal presents a direct tax revenue benefit for the city of Staunton and will result in nearly 40 more employees supporting the economy of Staunton. I've done economic development in the past, and we find that presenting an opportunity to improve the number of employed workers within the city would be beneficial to the region. Centerra RMH respectfully requests City Council to adopt our proposed resolution supporting approval of COPN request VA 8511. Thank you very much.
And thank you. Council members, do you have any additional questions for the representatives from Centerra at this
Mayor
time?
Dole, it's Eric Kern.
Dr. Curran?
I'm just curious, is it coincidence that Centerra and Augusta Health are making these proposals at the same time? Or did one proposal come first and is the other one a response?
Yes, this is Kurt Huffick with Centerra. I'll address that question as we currently have the floor. Centerra has been studying the implementation of services in Staunton for over 2 years now. We started investigating the property, the subject property, Ryan Steakhouse, over 10 months ago. We have finally reached an agreement in terms of a proposed transaction there. And it is by circumstance that we end up in the same COPN cycle as Augusta. But as I mentioned before, we don't consider this a competitive situation for the city of Staunton, in that both of these could be approved, both could be denied. I don't see any benefit to the city of Staunton by selecting one over the other, as both would actually improve access to services for the city. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions?
This is Brenda Mead.
Ms. Mead?
I was hoping that we might have a little more updated information on the revenue impact by the time we got together for this meeting.
Hi, this is Leslie. Maggie, are you still there?
I am.
Okay. Yeah, we asked Maggie to do, based on the PowerPoint and some of the estimates, to do a quick estimate. And so she can correct me if I'm wrong here, but in terms of the assets, the tangible assets, the 2.5 million investment in tangible property would result in year one of revenue of around $70,000. And then in terms of the real estate, obviously it would depend on the assessment. The current assessment on that property is around $695,000, I believe. Obviously that's going to go up considerably. Don't know exactly what that would be, but it will certainly be more than the $6,000 or so that the city receives currently from that property in terms of the real estate assessment. Maggie, do you have anything to add to that?
That's correct, Leslie. The tangible property assessment, based on the information that Centerra has provided in their PowerPoint, would put you in a range of somewhere between $72,000 and $85,000 as in year one. Those would be placed on a trending schedule, and so those would be depreciated over the successive years, and that amount would reduce until further property is placed into service, as I'm certain that they would over the years, as most do. As far as the real estate's concerned, I'm unable to give you an accurate projection of what that revenue would be, as I'm not your real estate assessor. But as Leslie said, I'm certain that it would increase considerably over what is currently being assessed on that property. And I'd be happy to work with our real estate assessor if you needed further information after this meeting. Thank you.
Yeah, if I could, this is Kurt Hoflick. Just in terms of the history of the property, this property sold to a real estate development company in 2006 for $2.4 million.
This is Brenda Mead again. I just want to make it clear that I asked that question only because I think it's important that we have all of the facts as we make this decision, not because I feel that should be the only information we use to make this decision.
All right, are there any other questions? And I will point out that in your briefing, Ms. Beauregard has 3 recommendations, possible recommendations. One being that we can decide to entertain a motion to consider the attached resolution and take a vote tonight. Number 2 is we can decline to approve this request and take no action. Or 3, we can continue the consideration of the matter for a resolution at the June 11th City Council meeting. So those are kind of the options we can do now. I wonder if people feel like they need more time to consider it, or if someone is ready to make a motion tonight. Do I need, I would need a motion to continue the consideration to the next meeting, or a motion to adopt this resolution. If we decline to approve this, then we just wouldn't have a motion. So Council,
it's Andrea.
Ms. Oaks?
It's my belief that since both entities just presented tonight, and it's apparent that we need some more information, I would like to make a motion that the City Council continue consideration of the Sentara RMH Medical Center proposal until Council's June 11, 2020 meeting.
Thank you. Is there a second?
A second.
Thank you, Mr. Holmes.
Sorry.
Any further discussion? If not, Ms. Simmons, would you call the roll, please?
Dr. Harrington,
Aye.
Ms. Mead,
Aye.
Mr. Holmes,
Aye.
Ms. Oaks,
Aye.
Dr. Curran,
Aye.
Mayor Dahl,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Kyer.
Aye.
Motion carries.
All right, thank you. That matter will be continued until the June 11th meeting. Next, we have consideration of the resolution supporting approval of COPN request number VA-8500 Augusta Health to Virginia State Health Commissioner. Ms. Beauregard?
Okay, thank you, Mayor Dahl. So Augusta Health has applied to the Virginia Department of Health for a certificate of public need for new imaging facilities to be included as part of a new outpatient pavilion on its campus in Fishersville. The application proposes 1 MRI scanner and 1 CT scanner to enhance the level of service to Augusta Health service area. And Augusta Health has requested that City Council adopt a resolution expressing its support for the application. Again, you've heard many details about this proposal during your work session, and I'm now going to ask our guests from Augusta Health to provide a very quick and brief summary of their proposal before any final questions are broached that you all may have in the consideration of the item. So I'll turn it over to Mark, if he's there.
Thank you, Leslie. Can you hear me okay, Leslie?
Yes, we can hear you. Thank you.
Thank you. We sent out in advance a summary of our proposal, and so I'll defer to that for the details of the project, and hope you've had the opportunity to review that. This resolution will provide access to not only the Staunton residents, which are a very important priority to us as they represent a significant portion of our patient base, but also the region. We receive patients from Lexington, Staunton, Waynesboro, Augusta County. That's what makes up the 13,000 cases of people that will have the benefit to go through this center. It will be a low-cost facility. The Augusta board is fully supportive of Augusta Health, recognizing that well over 90% of the patients that will be seen in this facility come from this region and will receive that benefit. They want that benefit to go back to the patients, and they want that benefit to go back to the local businesses that are self-insured. They also want that benefit to be available to the physicians who currently practice in this area, who have moved to this area, and they want to provide those services here. Staunton has about 525 Augusta Health employees that live and reside in Staunton. It's important to recognize that the revenue stream that comes from Augusta Health is your investment. It's important that you know that you made this investment 25 years ago when you decided to close King's Goddard Hospital. You said, you know what, we're going to bet the farm. And we're going to combine our hospital with Waynesboro because we recognize that the demand in the market only supports one hospital. And look what's happened. Your investment has paid returns. And Augusta Health has done a phenomenal job of providing those returns, just as it will do with this center that it is developing. Today, there are services here that you could not have imagined 25 years ago because of your investment. And I ask that you keep that in mind. The other thing that you need to remember is that there's only so many patients in the market. You could approve two resolutions for two facilities, but the reality is that the volume from a second facility here is going to come out of Augusta Health. It's going to come out of their revenue stream. It's going to come out more than the tax revenue that was just discussed, even if you doubled it. And that results in employees and people that provide the services. It results in the degradation of the healthcare revenue stream that you created. Think of it as an investment that you make in your retirement. You put that equity away and you wait for it and you watch it develop. You've done a great job. Looking at the short-term tax gain is like saying, I'm going to take some of that equity off the table and I'm going to take it now. Well, that's fine, but you won't have that interest later on down the road when you retire. This has been a long-term journey for Augusta Health, and it's been successful. It's your hospital. Protect your investment. And we respectfully ask that you would approve our resolution to move forward so that we can show the state that we have a unified community effort to move. Thank you.
Thank you. Council members, do you have any questions? If there are no questions, once again, we have 3 recommendations. We can entertain the motion to consider formally the resolution for Augusta Health. We can decline to approve the request and take no action, or we can continue the consideration of the matter at the June 11th City Council meeting. So at this time, if someone is inclined to make a motion, I would entertain that.
Mayor Dole, it's Eric Kern.
Dr. Curran?
I move that City Council adopt the resolution supporting approval of COPN request number VA-8500, Augusta Health to Virginia State Health Commissioner as presented.
Thank you. And that was Vice Mayor Kyer.
Vice Mayor.
Seconding. Any further discussion? If not, Ms. Simmons, would you call the roll, please?
Dr. Curran.
Aye.
Ms. Mead.
Aye.
Mr. Holmes.
Aye.
Ms. Oakes. Ms. Oakes.
She's having problems with her audio, it looks like.
Well, she's muted.
I was trying to make a statement. Before the vote.
Before the vote?
Yes, I was trying to make a statement.
Do you want to make your statement while you're voting? I guess that's...
If y'all are okay, I will.
Is everyone okay with that?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I was hoping that we could put this off until the next meeting. However, with that said, 30% of the costs to patients going down for the services that Augusta Health would provide is significant. This is a community hospital. This is a part of Staunton. This is part of the King's Daughters Hospital that combined with the hospital from Waynesboro. So this is a community hospital. When you have 25% of the workforce that resides here in Staunton, that's a significant number. There's also intangibles that need to be considered, such as 40% services provided to the low-income poverty level here within Staunton. Also, transportation being provided from Staunton to Fishersville. All of these need to be taken into consideration. And the fact that this is our community hospital, this is a part of Staunton. I will be supporting this measure. So yes, aye.
Mayor Dahl.
Aye.
Dr. Harrington.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Kyer.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. We'll move on now to item D, which is the presentation of quarterly financial report. Mr. Rosenberg.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Phil Traer, the city's Chief Finance Officer, will present this matter.
Madam Mayor, members of council, it's an honor to serve you this evening. Tonight we are here to review FY 2020's third quarter year-to-date revenue and expenditures. Total revenues through the third quarter equals 36.7 million or 58.1.
Bill, hold on. Let me get the PowerPoint up.
Okay.
Sorry.
That's okay.
My bad. I'm having difficulties here. Hold on.
See if you can fix my camera while you're at it.
What's that?
Okay.
All right, there we go.
There we go.
We're good. Okie doke. Next slide.
Okay, next slide. Yeah. Total revenues.
Yes, sir?
Yes, sir. Okay.
Somebody say something?
No. Total revenues through the third quarter equals 36.7 million or 58.1% of the annual appropriation. This is in line with historical results as FY19's third quarter's revenues equal 34.6 million or 57% of the annual appropriation. Even though we are 75% away through the fiscal year, 58% is normal given major revenue sources yet to come in such as real estate tax and year-end recordings. In addition to positive variances in meals, lodging, and sales tax, which we will review in a moment, there are year-on-year positive variances of real estate tax, 452,000, personal property tax of 449,000. On the expense side, we have posted $39.7 million worth of expenditures for 62.9% of the annual appropriation. Again, this is pretty consistent with prior year expenditures as FY19's third quarter expenditures equal 37.6 million or 61.1% of the annual appropriation. Year-on-year variance equals $2.6 million. Major components of this variance includes public safety, 449,000. The jail is driving that expenditure. Public health, 343,000. Social services is driving that variance. Planning and community development, tourism, $101,000 of that, and local transfers between funds of $1.2 million. We have $841,000 of that is a CIP. That's a timing difference. Last year, we posted the CIP transfer right at the end of the year, and this year it's already posted. And then the schools have a $325,000 positive variance, but you need to keep in mind that between FY19 and FY20, the local transfers for schools increased by $650,000. We have posted 50% of the transfer like normal, thus we have the $325,000 variance. Moving on to slide 3, sales tax. FY 2020 sales tax collected through February equals $3.2 million versus $2.8 million in FY19 for a positive variance of $318,000. This amounts to 11% year-on-year variance. Keep in mind, sales tax numbers are 2 months behind, but preliminary numbers for March are quite positive as sales tax revenues are actually projected to finish slightly ahead of FY19. Grocery stores, home improvements, online sales seem to be carrying the day, at least for the month of March, with sales tax. Slide 4. Lodging tax. Lodging tax FY20 collected through March equals $694,000 versus $563,000 in FY19 for a positive variance of $131,000 or a 23% increase. February postings equal 44% of the previous year, while March shows 116% over FY19's postings. Obviously, we had some February returns filed with March returns, as some businesses chose to submit their February and March returns together, and that's the reason for that variance. When combined, February and March postings equals 85% of the previous year. Preliminary postings for April are much closer to our projection of 25% of the previous year, and in fact, they may struggle to reach that 25% mark in April. Slide 5, meals tax. FY20 meals tax collected through March equals $3.5 million versus $3.4 million in FY19 for a year-to-date variance of $78,000. March revenues of $297,000 were 30% below the previous years, and April's preliminary postings will be close to the projections of 33% at the same time last year. And like the lodging tax, they may very well struggle to reach that mark. Our final slide, the next slide, we included this slide just to demonstrate the magnitude of the city's reliance on sales, meals, and occupancy tax. Obviously, the tax structure between Virginia County and Virginia City are very similar. However, the reliance on sales, meals, and occupancy tax are quite different. As can be seen in this slide, Staunton's reliance in these taxes is twice as high as Augusta County's, and Waynesboro's even higher. We will continue to monitor the tax collections, and we will report back to council in the coming weeks and months. And that's what I have at this time.
So council members, do you have any questions? I would just like to make a comment because I can't help but note that we were on our way to having an outstanding year. But Mother Nature has put a stop to that one. But it shows the potential that the city has. We were going to be ahead on every revenue you looked at. Anyway, that's my 2 cents. So are there any comments or questions from anyone?
Mayor Dahl, this is Brenda.
Me?
Phil, is the reason that it appears that the monthly sales tax has not taken hit is because that's paid 60 days in arrears? Is that correct?
Yeah.
So we won't see that impact for another month or 2 even?
And that's what, yes, ma'am, that is correct. And that's part of what made the revised budget in FY21 so challenging. We were running blind, and we still are from a sales tax perspective.
Any other questions or comments?
Were there any, this is Terry Holmes, were there any bright spots beside, because I'm sure some businesses have actually had an uptick.
I think we still have Maggie on the line, and I think Maggie can talk about a few bright stars. Maggie?
Thank you, Phil. Yes, I can tell you that there are a few things. We're talking about sales tax for the month of March. That's the last reporting we have. In the second half of that month, you saw a huge uptick, and I'm going to call that the toilet paper effect. So as soon as the governor ordered the shutdown, people ran to the grocery stores and the big box stores and stocked up on all kinds of things. And we did receive the benefit of the additional sales tax for that. Prior to the shutdown, our transient occupancy tax was up. If you recall, we had some really good mild weather at the beginning of the year. We also had increased bookings at the properties in Staunton Crossing because they are developing into more mature properties. And the same we were looking the same way with meals tax, basically, because when the weather's good, people come. We do have some bright spots in the meals tax form. I can tell you that we have 6 accounts that we have looked at for the month of April individually that have had higher meals tax revenues than they've ever had in the history of their businesses. Those are businesses that have provided curbside and drive-through service as part of their business model. all the time as opposed to just now. So I do think that we're going to see that we will be down in those revenues, but I don't think that that'll be as gloomy as we may have anticipated. I think that Mr. Trayer has done an excellent job with the numbers. Everything that he's done, I'm tracking from what I can see so far in that direction. As soon as we are able to get you numbers for sales and lodging and meals tax, we will get that information to you. And hopefully they are bright spots. Thank you.
Well, thank you. And you're a glutton for punishment to still be on the line. But thanks for that information. And thank you, Mr. Trayer, for the report and all of your work. Any other final comments on this, Mr. Holmes?
Yes, Maggie, are you still there? I've got one question. This is
Yes,
Terry
sir.
Holmes. How many people have taken advantage of paying late? Has it been a noticeable percentage, or?
We began offering that opportunity that covered the trust taxes that were due for the month of February, that were due March 20th. We had quite a few businesses take advantage of that at the beginning of the shutdown. I would say better than half of those have come back and actually paid those taxes once they realized that they were going to have the money to do it. We currently have about $75,000 outstanding of returns that have been filed, but those taxes have not been remitted. So I would say we have about 12 to 15 businesses that are still in the process of taking advantage of the leniency that council provided to get those taxes into us by June 30th.
Thank you.
Does that answer your question?
Yes.
Thank you.
I hope I'm
Any other questions of council members? If not, we will move on to item E that we added, the discussion and update concerning COVID-19 recovery planning. Mr. Rosenberg.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Members of council will recall at your meeting earlier this month, I briefed you concerning the establishment of a stabilization and recovery team to undertake recovery efforts in concert with those of the Commonwealth of Virginia and the Forward Virginia Reopening Plan. And you'll recall that underneath the umbrella of that stabilization and recovery team, we established several working groups, each of which is responsible for a particular subject area. One of those working groups is the Business Recovery and Outreach Working Group, and that's chaired by Cheryl Wagner, our tourism director. She is with us this evening along with Billy Vaughn to share with you details of a plan presently under development to provide for weekly closures of Beverly Street to accommodate the establishment of outdoor dining areas. And so I will ask them to share the concept with you. And as you listen to the concept, please keep in mind that at the end of the presentation, we will be looking for guidance from you as to whether this is a concept that seems acceptable so that we can move forward with its implementation. As a technical matter, I think that Mr. Gwynn would tell us that ultimately council will need to approve this by formal action, perhaps in the form of an ordinance. But we'd like to be in a position to proceed with the concept as early as Friday, June 5th, and then come back to you for formal action at your meeting on June 11th, which would be retroactive in its effect. So again, hear the concept from Cheryl and Billy. After they've made their presentation, we'll entertain your questions and hear your comments, but ultimately we'd like in some informal sense from you all that this is a concept that will be acceptable so that we can move forward with its implementation. So with that, let me turn it over to Cheryl.
This is Cheryl Wagner, Madam Mayor, members of council. Thank you so much for having me. As Steve said, we broke into our work groups, and I'm the chair of the Business Recovery and Outreach. And so the first thing we did is we had a meeting with our group, which in my group, I'd like to call them all out. It's Lee Catlin, Billy Vaughn, Amanda DeMeo, Greg Beam from SDDA, Katie Campbell from my office, and I've invited Kim Cormier. So we had our first meeting on May 7th, which was right after our recovery team was established. And what we decided was we really needed to hear from the community. We needed to hear from the business community. And the question we asked them is, how can the city of Staunton be helpful in the reopening process and be supportive in your success? And it was loud and clear from everyone on our group. And our stakeholders group, it ranged from retail and lodging and nonprofits to the YMCA to car dealership. You know, we included a wide range of different businesses in the city. But it was loud and clear that they said we should close down Beverly to vehicular traffic. So for the past 2 weeks, we've been working towards that goal. We've vetted it through all of our city departments who are super supportive. And I'm not just talking public works and city manager's office. I mean, our finance director is super supportive of this, our HR department. So it's been really nice to work with our entire team towards this goal. So the plan is, if you agree, is to give this a try, you know, and to reassess after every week. We plan to meet with our restaurants again. We plan to meet with our retailers again. And we'd like to start at June 5th. We would close Beverly from 5 p.m. on Friday and reopen on Sunday at 9 p.m. We have lots of support from restaurants. It's going to require a significant investment from our Beverly Street restaurants right now. First of all, it's going to require their staffing, you know, to recruit staffing. I'm sure Terry knows a lot about that, to get staffing back. Furniture, maybe umbrellas, fencing, but you know, we've worked very hard over the last 2 weeks to try to make this happen, and I think we can, and I know we can. So we're just looking for your approval tonight.
I have one question that just popped into my head. Will there be trash? Will there be the ability to have trash pickup? Because if we have more business, there'll be more trash. I was just curious.
Let me, if I may, and I don't know, Billy, are you planning to show any visuals?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes,
so Mayor Dole, the concept is that this will not turn Beverly Street into a food court. On the contrary, we will be designating for each restaurant on Beverly Street a specific area in which its patrons may be served. And part of that is tied to requirements of the Virginia Alcoholic Beverage Control Authority. I think many of these restaurants that have ABC licenses already will be following a streamlined process established by ABC to permit the service of alcoholic beverages in these outdoor seating areas. And in order to stay within the requirements of ABC, it's not going to be a circumstance where patrons are moving from outdoor seating area to outdoor seating area. If they're served by Blue Point, they dine in the Blue Point area. Blue Point is responsible for the care of that outdoor seating area as if it is that restaurant's patio. So they're responsible for bussing, they're responsible for cleaning up. In fact, all we're going to do is mark the pavement with an outline, and then each restaurant will be responsible for the setup, if you will, of that area. So to the extent it needs to be cordoned off to meet ABC requirements, they're responsible for that. They're responsible for furnishing it with any outdoor furniture. And so we will have some additional trash facilities on the street, but my hope and expectation is that it will be a relatively controlled environment and that it will not, as I said, turn Beverly Street into a food court.
Yeah, my question was just like, will the trash truck be able to do the downtown? Wasn't there a trash pickup on Saturday, typically back in the?
They do on Saturday morning, yes.
Yeah. And so they'll still be able to get to wherever they put the trash? That was my question. So does Billy have more to the presentation?
Madam Mayor, yes, I do. And at some point, I'd like to share my screen if Zach could make that work. But while he's checking on that, the plan is to close Beverly beginning at Lewis all the way down to Market Street, keeping all of the side streets or through streets open, such as Lewis, Central, Augusta, New, and Market. They would remain open, moving traffic. The closure would begin at 5 o'clock with Public Works putting in the appropriate barriers. And then that would also give the restaurant an opportunity to start moving tables out into the street with plans to begin providing food service at 6 p.m. And so that will run through Sunday with them providing outside dining, outdoor dining. And then we're hoping that they'll be complete with their dinner service by 8. And then Public Works will come through and remove all the barriers at 9 p.m. on Sunday night. Let me try to share my screen if I. This is sort of a quick and dirty rendering of what might happen. We're planning to put barriers here and here, and then you have the pedestrians moving down the left lane of Beverly Street. The right lane will be used by those establishments on the south side of Beverly. The parking side will be used by those establishments on the north side of Beverly. Each establishment will be responsible for roping off their service area with ingress and egress only from the pedestrian center walkway. So we're eliminating any pedestrian movement along the sidewalks. We're attempting to keep people in the middle of the street as they move from one area on Beverly to another. I have one other. This might be a little hard to see, but again, you can see here's Lewis and Market with all the through streets remaining open. The little green dots are the approximate location of curbside pickup for those restaurants who, prior to this closure, were allowing their customers to drive right up to their door and pick up their meals. Now what we'll designate curbside pickup with markings, probably sandwich boards provided by SDDA, so that those restaurants can still serve their customers.
Billy, did you
change? The photo didn't change.
Right.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I know I have bad vision, but I wasn't seeing anything you were mentioning.
Nick, do you see that?
Yes.
Okay.
No, I've got the same. I've got the same. Now it changed. Okay.
So do you see the map of downtown? The red denotes West Beverly Street and the closure.
Yes.
And you can see the cross streets that would remain open. The green symbols denote the approximate location of curbside pickup for those restaurants that have been used to serving their customers right outside of their establishment. And so we'll have a spot on New Street, 2 spots on New Street, 2 on Market, and 2 on Central. Since Augusta and Lewis are both two-way traffic, there is no safe spot to provide for curbside pickup. Any questions?
I have a question, Mayor Dole. Jim Harrington.
Yeah.
My question is it anticipated that, actually 2 questions. First of it has to do with restaurants. Do you anticipate that every restaurant downtown will participate in this, or will some of them opt to just keep operating the way they have been?
At this point, we're not sure. I think some of them will attempt to do so, but I think there was still some reservation by being able to pull all this together by June the 5th.
Okay. And my other question has to do with the other retail establishments downtown. Do they have the option also of extending their store out front and selling whatever they sell out in the...
In our meetings with the retailers, they have requested that right to do so. But if Mr. Rosenberg would like to respond to that question also, I'll turn it over to him.
Okay.
Dr. Harrington, we're considering that, and the concern is finding a way to strike a balance between creating a street festival atmosphere, which, where we still find ourselves in the first phase of the reopening, where there's encouragement from public health officials for folks to really remain at home as much as possible. So we hear the concerns of the retailers. Cheryl and Billy, as they've indicated, have met with them. And so we're going to give consideration to that and try to find some way that we can accommodate it without creating an environment downtown that's counterproductive to public health and safety.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Mayor Dole.
It said she left.
Oh. I have some questions.
This is Brenda Mead. I just lost power briefly, and Carolyn may have been impacted by that as well.
Mm-hmm.
So we can wait a moment to see if the mayor reconnects.
I'm gonna make a real quick bathroom run then.
Hope the lights don't go out.
Mr. Rosenberg,
Yes.
Carolyn is trying to get back on again.
Okay.
Are we still waiting?
Yes, we are, Mr. Vice Mayor. We understand that the mayor is attempting to reconnect now.
So why don't I interject and take over for a minute since Mr. Holmes has questions, and maybe that's her, and proceed with his questions.
I had, to be honest with you, I have quite a few questions, actually.
That's what I thought.
One is, how do you determine how much space each individual business gets? Is it based on their road front or their face of their building?
Correct. It's based on their street frontage. And so they would simply go from one end of their face of their building, if they're on the north side, all the way out to the southern part of the parking space, and then down to the other end of their building.
Well, just looking at some of the businesses, that would only probably provide them with space for 2 or 3 tables, you know, and then having to rent the tables unless they bring their tables outside. And also the limited amount of time, like if they can't serve but from 6 to 8, you know, and I don't know, on Saturday, were you expecting it to be open all day or just?
Yes. All day on Saturday. Yes, sir.
Yeah. And not on Sunday?
No, all day on Sunday.
All day on Sunday.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
9 p.m. on Sunday.
Yeah.
And Mr. Holmes, there will be, we needed to start somewhere. So we started with the building faces, but there will be a mechanism in place that if there's an adjacent business that's not a restaurant, if the restaurant can get the permission from the owner or occupant of the adjacent business to establish or to expand their seating area in front of that adjacent storefront, then we will consider and potentially accommodate that request.
They also have to get a rider policy to extend their insurance, correct? To cover the outdoor area. Was that something I thought I saw that somewhere in a, you know, maybe I was reading the thing from Northern Virginia. Were y'all looking at anything like that where they'd have to have a special permit or something like that for their insurance?
Not as of this time.
Okay. And
I am back.
All right.
Oh, we didn't finish.
Well, I'm happy for you then.
I had one other thing real quick. I just noticed, by the way, that would actually cut Baja from having an access. They would have to walk their food to somebody a pretty good distance. Is there any way that there's any place that, like, somebody could maybe even there where the movie theater is, that little alley that goes over to Central, is there any way that people could park in that alley so that Baja could or the Aloy could get their food out?
So Chip Clark has actually offered his parking lot at SunTrust for the weekends. And he was supposed to send me an email today, so none of this is organized yet, but for the weekends that it would be free and open to the public. And that could possibly be a delivery spot for Baja.
Well, I just know that really blocks Sarah off there because and Eloy, because it'd be a lot harder for somebody to get in and out of there because they couldn't park on Beverly Street. But I mean, I think it's a great idea. I don't mean to throw water on it. It's just that those were things that I thought about almost immediately.
Well, and if I may suggest, isn't part of the idea in bringing the tables outside so they meet the indoor seating capacity and the distancing at the same time? So they would be bringing their tables outside. Am I correct?
They do have that option of bringing their own tables outside. Also, the Stonewall Jackson Hotel, they have just ordered all new banquet tables and seating. And so Damon Strickland has offered for any of our restaurants to use their 400 chairs and 135 tables if they use. And Chip Clark has offered for his empty buildings, because we do want them to store them overnight. We don't want them to be in the street overnight for Saturday and Sunday, or for Friday and Saturday night. He's offered for them to store here in his open spaces. It's really been a wonderful community.
This is Andrea. I have a question for Steve Rosenberg. Steve?
Yes.
So I think this is a great idea. I love it. But I want to be fair to all the restaurants in the city of Staunton. If a restaurant, say in the West End, would like to set up seating, would they be able to do so?
We've been contacted by at least one establishment, Ms. Oakes. Any restaurant the challenge downtown is that there's no place for these restaurants to go. Out in the West End, where restaurants have adjacent parking on private property, for example, or if they have some area, on their property where they wish to expand and establish a temporary outdoor seating area, we're able to accommodate that request. And if they contact Mr. Vaughn, he will help them walk through whatever requirements apply. It's a slightly different situation because in most other locations in the city outside of the central business district, there is room for these restaurants to do what they would need to do on private property.
Okay, because don't you normally need a special permit to have outdoor dining, but that's being waived at this time?
Bill, do you want to address that?
I've had conversations with the building official and with the city planner, and during this pandemic, they don't see it as an issue with the restaurants expanding to outdoor dining.
This is Terry Holmes. All they'd have to do probably is just rope it off or something so that, especially if they serve alcohol or something like that, they just, like down at the bistro, they have those planters and stuff that encase their little outdoor area. So I would assume that's how that would be in an established one that wasn't downtown. Because downtown, you wouldn't have to rope them off because it would all be on the street, right? Or would they have to do that also?
They will need to fulfill the ABC temporary requirements, cordon off the outdoor seating areas.
So are there other
This is
questions?
Andrea. I just wanted to just clarify. So the other restaurants have the ability to do this without worrying about a special permit for outdoor seating, as long as they have the space to be able to rope off the area in which to provide the seating.
Correct.
And they can contact you, Billy, correct?
You sure can. They can contact me, and I've had conversations with maybe 2 restaurants, and I assured them that they could move forward with outside dining in their parking lot.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Any other questions? Staff want to get the equivalent of a head nod. I don't know if that happened while I was gone, but if not, I'm gonna call names, and if you'd raise your hand, indicating that staff should proceed with this idea. So we'll start with Vice Mayor Kyer.
Yes.
All right, Dr. Curran.
Yes.
Yep. Dr. Harrington.
My hand is up.
All right. Mr. Holmes.
My hand is up.
Ms. Oakes.
I think she raised her hand.
Yes.
I saw those tips of the fingers.
Okay. Ms. Mead.
100%.
All right. So there you have your head nod, Mr. Rosenberg.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And so, as I said, we'll move forward. This is going to be a picture of flexibility, we hope. We'll need to be nimble. We will need to adjust on a week-by-week basis. The business community has been tremendously helpful and cooperative as we head down this road. And I think that it will be a positive development, but I urge a little bit of patience on the part of everyone as we make our way forward with this experiment. I'd like to, Madam Mayor, while we're on this subject of recovery planning, just share a little bit more detail with council about the work of the recovery team. Would that be
okay?
So among the other working groups that are under the team umbrella are the employees working group and the facilities program and services working group. And you all may recall that the focus of the employees working group is really on steps that need to be taken, measures that need to be implemented to provide for the safety of the workforce when we get to the point where we bring people back into city facilities. And the facilities programs and services working group is looking at the timing of the restoration of programs and services that were suspended and the reopening of facilities that were closed. So those two working groups have been working very closely together with one another. And I want to share with you their current effort. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay. So this is not quite yet final, but it's very close. So this tracks the phases that are a part of the state's reopening plan, phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3. Of course, we're currently in phase 1. The governor announced at his briefing today that phase 1 would continue until at least, or let me rephrase that. He indicated we would not move into phase 2 before Friday, June 5th. So we're originally tomorrow was a possible transition date from one phase to the other. The original estimate for phase 1 was 2 to 4 weeks. With the announcement today, the governor has indicated that phase 1 will last at least 3 weeks. And we're at least a week away then from moving into phase 2. But this table shows you that in phase 1, we've reopened the golf course with limited access to the pro shop to pay fees. And we have unlocked and made available for play tennis courts and pickleball courts in the city parks. Then you can see the progression as we move into phase 2. And I won't read through the entire list here. We will be sharing this in the next couple of days as it's finalized. The one item in phase 2 that I want to bring to your attention is the restoration of curbside service at the library. You all will remember that on the front end of this public health emergency, when the library initially closed to the public for a period of time, we offered a curbside pickup and drop-off service. And as we come out into phase 2 shortly after phase 2 begins, if it does in fact begin on June 5th, that Sarah Scrobus has indicated her desire to resume the library curbside service. You all will recall that we've implemented a hiring freeze for the duration of the fiscal year. We also terminated the 64 part-time employees, many of whom were employees at the library. And in order to restore the curbside service before the end of the fiscal year, it will be necessary to bring back 6 part-time staff and 1 page position to the library at a cost that's estimated at about $7,000 to provide 47 hours of curbside service per week for the remaining 2 weeks of the fiscal year. And I'm prepared to move forward with that. I think it's a de minimis amount. I think we all expected, and including yourselves as members of council, that we would resume these suspended services once public health considerations allowed us to do so. And we think that with the movement into phase 2, we will arrive at that point. And so I presently have on my desk a request for an exception to the hiring freeze, and my inclination this evening is to favorably consider that again, to authorize hiring the 6 part-time employees in 1 page for $7,000 through the remainder of the fiscal year. And then you can see the progression into phase 3, where we'll reopen City Hall and the administration building at Montgomery Hall Park. In City Hall, employees only for the first week. And then the rest of the facilities, it's our intention to bring back online as we move into phase 3. And you may remember that let's assume that phase 2 begins a week from tomorrow on June 5th. That phase also is expected to last, or projected to last, 2 to 4 weeks itself. So we're not talking about moving into phase 3 for another 3 to 5 weeks from today's date. So I just wanted to share this effort with you. And I'm happy to entertain any questions that you have.
Steve, this is Terry Holmes.
Yes, sir.
A few questions. One, with the CARE money, is there any way that we could restore the firemen back to not having to take a furlough by maybe using them on their furlough day to maybe do testing for the coronavirus? And like, because wouldn't they be able to set up a facility somewhere where we could possibly reinstate these guys by letting them do something like that, because they're all pretty much EMTs. And then and also, you know, with this being down 5 police officers, is there any way that we can justify using any of this CARE money for maybe hiring a policeman?
Mr. Holmes, we did, Ms. Beauregard provided an email to council earlier today that addressed some of these issues, and I'm gonna invite her to share with you generally the details that she conveyed in that email.
Okay, great, thank you. So yeah, we know there's a lot of questions around this CARES funding, and you have as many questions as we do right now, to be honest. But let me tell you what we know now and how we're determining the allowable uses of this funding. And just quickly on the testing, Mr. Holmes, because you had asked about the testing. So Chief Garber is actually working with the Virginia Department of Health. They are leading that effort, and he's waiting to hear back from them in terms of that coordination. So as soon as we have some news on that, we'll definitely share that. But it's the Virginia Department of Health coordinating that, and he's working with them to see how that can happen in the city. So I just wanted to say that quickly as well. So we did receive, obviously we've received notification that the city would receive $2.1 million on May 12th. That's only been a couple of weeks that we found out that we would be receiving these funds. And what we did, what we have done since then to follow up with that is, one, we created a new sub-team within the stabilization and recovery team that will focus just on the CARES funding, its conditions, its limitations, and how we can use it. And that includes staff from the city manager's office, from finance, fire and rescue, economic development, and office on youth. So that team will start meeting to actually talk about how this funding and the details behind it. Management team has also sent us and will be continuing to send their ideas and brainstorms about how they could use these funds for their operations. And again, this is a list that's being developed. It doesn't mean anything is finalized. It doesn't mean everything is approved on that list. It's literally a brainstorm list at this point. We also have a business grant and economic relief component that we're talking about, and a list of kind of the broader issues that all departments will be facing as we move towards reopening to the public our facilities. And so we're kind of putting those lists together right now, and we'll be talking about those lists and finalizing from that list what we will actually be able to use the funding for. The list will continually be vetted by the management team, and we'll bring in subject matter experts as we need to as well from around the city. And finally, we've already spent some funds on the COVID-19 pandemic and our response, and so we'll be looking at what we've already spent and how we can reimburse ourselves.
Well, I know if it's like the PPE loan, it's got so many strings attached. You know, it's like a puppet. You know, it's just like it's hard to move around it. So I just was hoping that maybe there was some way we could justify using it for some of those positions.
It is certainly on our list, sir, and it's a high priority, as you'll understand and agree.
And let me add, Mr. Holmes, that we are touching lots of bases. Leslie has been engaged with a member of Senator Kane's staff to try to get some clarification about what's permissible. We've been conferring with our external auditor. Because ultimately the manner in which we use the funds is going to be, has to pass muster with our auditor, and also in the event we're subject to an audit by another level of government. And so these are issues and questions of statewide concern. Leslie is participating with groups across the state. On a regular basis, meeting to talk about potential uses of the funds and whether they're permitted under the Act. And we've learned that the Office of Management and Budget will be providing further detailed guidance about permissible uses of the funds next month. So we're looking forward to receiving that, which is, that's ultimately, that combined with guidance from the Treasury Department is really what we need to rely on. And on some of these questions, we don't have the clarity that we believe is necessary in order to make decisions and move forward with the uses of the funds. But we are, reaching out to all of the different sources that we have available to us in order to do the legwork, while at the same time gathering this list of possible uses of the funds. And when we have all of that and we can bring it together, we'll come up with a set of proposals that we'll be in a position to share with council.
Okay,
Steve,
so Mr. Rosenberg,
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Did you have
Ann.
another question?
I was
Okay,
just
thank you.
I was just going to ask real quick, if say we don't use this money correctly, is there a certain percentage interest rate we have to pay if something happens? Because I know with the PPP loan, I have to pay it back in 2 years, but it's only at 1%. You know, although if it's a lot of money, it's a lot of money. But I didn't know if there was any kind of restrictions on the care loan.
I haven't seen any type of language about an interest, but if an auditor or whoever deems that we use funds inappropriately, we will simply have to pay those funds back, period. Whatever that amount is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Mr. Rosenberg, this is Andrea Oakes. I have a question. So the sub-team, will they be looking at possibly using the funding to eliminate the furloughs for the firefighters?
I think as Ms. Beauregard indicated, we will be looking at that, and we will, it would be likely to be our recommendation that we look at all of the public safety positions, because I'll remind council members that 30% of the police department is subject to the furloughs. So
thank you.
As a matter of equity, if we eliminate them if we eliminate the furloughs for the members of one public safety department, then we're likely to recommend that they be eliminated for both public safety departments.
Thank you. This is Andrea. Thank you for that information.
You're welcome.
Any other questions or comments? If not, we can move on to matters from the city manager. Mr. Rosenberg?
Madam Mayor, it looked like Vice Mayor Kyer may have a question, but he's muted. I'm not sure.
Well, I have
Sorry
your
about
phases up. I can't see anybody.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm here. I just want to let you know my battery is down to 9% and sinking. It's plugged up, but it's not charging. So if I disappear, I'm sorry. That's all.
All right. So
Okay.
matters from city manager.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. I simply, well, before I move on, let me, I think this is a good time. The next item is on the agenda is matters from the public. And if I would suggest before I share matters from the city manager, that if there are any members of the public who wish to address council, this would be a good time to call and place yourself in the queue to do so. The number to do that again is 844-854-2222. And when prompted, enter the access code for the meeting, 619358, followed by the pound sign. And you will hear the automated word muted. And at that point, you will have been added to the queue to share your comments. While you're in the queue, you will hear the audio feed of the meeting. And when you hear the automated word unmuted, you will be recognized to address council. So again, that number is 844-854-2222. And you enter the access code 619358 pound. And Madam Mayor, in terms of matters from the public, I simply would like to express my continued thanks to the business community for the cooperation and patience and flexibility that they have demonstrated in their interactions with city staff as we move forward with our efforts to accommodate the new and different use on Beverly Street. And we look forward, all of us on staff continue to look forward to working with them to bring these changes to fruition. I have nothing beyond that. Thank you.
All right, thanks. So we're now at matters from the public. And if we can see if we have anything. All right, so we have 2 callers in the queue. So is the first one now on? All right, so if you would like to give your name and address and make your comments. If you're on if you're the first caller and you're now on, have you muted your phone? We're not hearing anything. So first caller, is your phone muted? Would someone like to speak now? If you're unmuted, you may start speaking. I guess you can move to the next because we're not hearing anything we can understand.
Hello?
Next caller.
This is Richard Bolstein, 113 Oak Terrace. Can you hear me?
Yes, good evening.
You're the first caller and you're now on. Have you muted your phone? We're not hearing you.
I've muted my TV and I'm talking on my phone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Well, this is Richard Bolstein, 113 Oak Terrace. I'm really calling just to let you know that somebody's listening to you. That if you can imagine that we were having a regular meeting, there would be at least me in the audience. I don't know who else is there. So I don't want you to think you're alone. This was a really good meeting. I really like the way the city has really come together and is doing some positive work here. This is the way the city council should work, worrying about our city, period. So I just want to congratulate you, Mr. Rosenberg, city manager, all the staff who have come together. And this is a great program of getting our businesses, our restaurants back in business. And I still am concerned about the shortage in the police department. I wish we could hire another police officer. But in any case, I'm proud of your work today. I think it was a wonderful meeting, and I congratulate all of you for the work you've been doing. Thank you, and I'll sign off.
Thank you. Do we have any other callers? Yes, you may start your comments now.
Madam Mayor, I don't think that the caller is aware that they're connected.
Evidently not. All right, do we have any other callers? Nope, that was the last one. So with no further business, this meeting's adjourned.